I've woken up to new D&D content and I would like to read it and understand what it is. Um, I actually should also go find. It looked like I think it was Jeremy Crawford had an hour-long interview that I also want to check out. So I might watch through that. Um, I might watch through that as well. Yeah, Mister Craw. We could do that later though. First, I would like to go into here and read this. So, to my understanding, this is the direction that the rewrite of 5e is going to go. Sounds like they're calling it 1D&D, which is that's a name. It's very corporate. Um but like, you know, I I technically have never read the player's handbook. Technically, I haven't like read it as a book, and so I'm going to try and read this. How long is it even? Okay. Okay. Well, we'll just we'll I won't skim, but I'm not gonna fucking read this word for word. Um, so this is kind of the direction that D&D is going in, right? Like from Tasha's, they started the evolution. This is the next big step of clickbait. Whoa, it's sixth edition. It's not sixth edition. It sounded like I watched like the first couple minutes, like the first minute of this, and it sounded like I should choose literally any other frame. First like minute of this, and it sounded like they're moving away from editions or something. I don't know, man. I'm just gonna start looking through this. If I had an eye tracker, that would be easier because that would be more entertaining than just like watching me read. So, what you'll find is the following content: races, backgrounds, starting languages, feats, and rules glossary. Okay. Okay. So, and this is character origins. Okay, that makes sense. It's a player's handbook. Um, read that this is material play. I don't care. It's going to be overtuned, and everyone's going to complain, and then they will. They actually do change it a bit. I don't know. I have Overwatch on the mind where they release content, say they're going to take feedback, and then don't do anything. From what I've seen, it sounds like all the Unearthed Arcanas actually do get changed quite significantly. I also have no credibility for um actually fucking uh yeah, I have no credibility, and I've done a couple D&D streams, but the internet doesn't know that I know about D&D. So this is just to begin that. I apologize, people on the internet, if you don't believe me. Fight me about it. Determining your origin. After determining your character's class. Oh, it's after the class. Oh, so, okay, this doesn't have classes. Godoy. Um, you choose a race, a background, a language. Cool. Actually, I've only had one spoiler about this, and I'm very excited to read about the backgrounds. Character's race represents ancestry and confirms it does some stuff. Character origin overview table lists the traits your character gains from race and background. So, race trait. Get a creature type. Yep. Size. Yep. Speed. Pretty much going to be 30 feet. Lifespan. Cool. Doesn't really matter in game. Uh, well, I mean, it matters for like vibes, but special traits. Yeah, makes sense. Wow. Okay. Background trait. Ability score bonus. That's really exciting to me. Oh. Oh. Okay. I just skimmed down to feet. Ability score bonus. A background grants a +2 bonus to one ability score and a +1 to bonus to a different one. Taking that over from races. I'm going to read through these first and get really excited. Skill proficiency. You get 2 skill proficiencies from a background, as normal. Tool proficiency. Each background gives tool proficiency with 1 tool. Language. Learns one language. Each background provides a first level feat, a special ability acquired in the character's past. And a background provides a portion of the character's starting equipment, with the rest coming from the class. That excites me so fucking much. Because backgrounds to a character previously with D&D, with 5e at least, I have skimmed over them and not cared at all whatsoever because they haven't added anything meaningful. Adding ability scores, boom, perfect, sweet, I love that. That's very interesting, that's very cool, and people do... I'm kind of repeating what Pyro Saber, I jumped onto his stream, was going to listen to his opinion, and then realized that I wanted to do this, so I left immediately and didn't say anything because I'm cringe. But he said something, and I was about to say what he said, and I've forgotten what he said. Oh yeah, he basically, like, everyone uses Tasha's anyway. So winner. Tool proficiency, skill proficiency, language, sweet, perfect. Equipment, that's as normal. That's as previous, but adding the feat and the ability score bonus. Uh, Adding the something else that I heard from Pyro is it sounds like there's feat prerequisite levels now, which is a little bit meh. But also, this completely destroys the variant human. If I see another fucking human in my role-playing game, I was about to say in my video game, in my role-playing game, I'm gonna riot. There's no reason to play a human in this game anymore. Why would you play a human? That's so boring. At least play an elf, you know? And my partner, you know, big into, you should be able to smash it. If it's a tiefling, if it's an orc, if it's an elf, nice and queer. That's good. I am of a different opinion. I'm of the other asexual, where I don't want it. If it has a human face, I ain't about it. Get that shit out of here. I will play a bunny rabbit or a dragon. And so there is no reason to play a human. Because you can either go like tiefling, and it's just human person with horns, which is just better, or not a human, and be anything else. Be a halfling. Just a little human. I like that. Because feats, man. And I assume that we don't know what these first level feats are. Maybe we will later, but race and background together help bring your character's backstory into focus. Yeah, cool. After choosing a race and background, you choose a language. Yeah, cool. This makes more sense because like the shift as well from like races involving the culture in the features of the race that just now moves onto the background, and so you could have like it just lets you, like, you could still do that like really traditional, say, dwarven, right, where you're in the mountain and you learn weapons your whole life and all of that, like all the traditional dwarven culture. You just put that in a dwarf background now, or like whatever that culture's name is. I'm not aware of Sword Coast lore or anything like that. Forgotten Realms lore. Character races, blah 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 blah. Description rules for the following. Okay. Ardling. This document provides descriptions and rules for the following races: humans, Ardling, Dragonborn, Dwarf, Elf, Gnome, Halfling, Orc, and Tiefling. So based on the Monsters of the Multiverse rewrites, I'm very interested for Dwarf, very interested for Orc. Halflings I feel like will get nerfed. What is an Ardling? I'm gonna do this real quick. I'm just images. Interesting. There is like okay, let's keep going. Humans. What can humans do now? There's some flavor text. Oh, I read Ardling and I saw upper planes, and I'm going to like ignore all of that. Humans. I've just realized by reading that I've forgotten about inspiration for a year. They're putting inspiration mechanically into a character. Okay, there's still a really good reason to play a human, because that's kind of more broken than the lucky halfling feat. Not a feat. It's the lucky, because you can reroll anything as opposed to rerolling ones. That's insane. You gain proficiency and you get an extra feat. Okay, actually, there's a really good reason to play humans still. Resourceful's really fucking good. Cool. Humans are great. Ardlings are super supernal beings who are either born of the upper planes or have one or more ancestors who originated there. Their bright souls shine with the light of immortal beings who call the upper planes their home. An Ardling has a head resembling that of an animal, typically one of virtuous associations. Depending on the animal, the Ardling might have software, downy feathers, or a supple bare skin. The Ardling's celestial legacy determines on the animal it resembles. The Ardling gains a measure of magical power from the celestial legacy, as well as the ability to manifest spectral wings. An Ardling's moral and ethical look is determined. Yeah. Is exalted. The fierce passions of Arbor. Is this an upper planes tiefling? Is this like asthma? But like a less weird. Is upper planes tieflings. So in my homebrew world, I've just kind of lobbed. I also it's complicated. I changed the entire like planar structure because I had a different idea for it. But basically all the outer planes, I was like, tieflings, they're not just from the Nine Hells, they can have heritage from all of the outer planes. Like whatever. So you could have like a Feywild. I know Feywild's not an outer plane, but hear me out. You could have a Feywild tiefling. You could have a Beastlands tiefling. You could have a Asgard tiefling. But with an Ardling, you could have upper planes, and so just tieflings could be from all the lower planes, and Ardlings can be from all the upper planes. The exalted, the feared passions of Arborea, the heroic hearts of Asgard, and the wondrous nature of the Beastlands call to Ardlings who have the exalted celestial legacy. Their celestial ancestors are heroic champions of chaotic good planes. Oh wow, that's beefy already. That's interesting. Heavenly. So Exalted is Arborea, Asgard, Beastlands. Heavenly is Arcadia, Mount Celestia, and Bitopia. Idyllic are Beastlands, Bitopia, and Elysium. I fucking love these Ardlings already. Because I'm just going to put them in the same boat. They're like Beastars tieflings. I will wait to see their art. Maybe their art will make them look cringe, because if they just have animal heads, then that's a bit whack. Well, actually, now that I'm thinking about like my fantasy world, maybe that'll work, because you look at like Leonin and Loxodon and like turtles and stuff. If Ardlings are like the halfway between like humans and Minotaur or something. Minotaur's a really bad example. Halfway between like um elves and rabbit folk and Harangon. Um, that might fit actually. Um, Live for like 200 years. Sweet elves. Angelic Flight. As a bonus action, you sprout spectral wing. This doesn't have a level. I thought this would be like level 5 or something. Up to the number of feet and fly up to a number of feet equal to your speed. If you're in the air at the end of this movement, you fall. Okay, so you can like dash. Bonus action a number of times equal to proficiency bonus. Yep, sweet. So, spells. Some suggested animals. Neat. Yeah, you got the Loxodons. I guess Aarakocra. Okay, so you can kind of... Okay, toad people. Ooh. I've been trying to... This is very interesting. This is a very interesting that it is to do with animals. Celestial Legacy. You're a recipient of Celestial Legacy that grants you magical abilities. Yeah, okay. Okay, you gain the initial benefit from your chosen legacy, a cantrip that you learn. You also choose, so you can learn a cantrip. Doesn't say from what list, because I assume that it'll all change. I know it's Unearthed Arcana, but because it doesn't say which spell list, perhaps spell lists might be going away. That's my assumption. You can choose the animal you closely resemble. You don't gain wings by choosing an animal that can fly. Yeah, you just get the head of an animal. 3rd level, and again at 5th level, you gain the ability to cast a higher level. Oh, wait. Gotcha. The cantrip is the 1st level. God, I hate spells being based on level, but they're not. It's... You get one of these cantrips. So let's look at the spell trick. So 3rd level and 5th level, you gain the ability to cast high level spells. You can do so once per long rest, and then with a spell slot, and you choose your thing. And you have resistance to radiant damage? This is like a beefier option for an asthma. Yeah, this is interesting. So these spell lists, and obviously in my homebrew campaign, I would like fuck with these and be like, yeah, you should pick whatever works for your character. Guidance, Healing Word, and Animal Messenger. That calls out to me as like the first one that gets my attention because guidance is so good and healing word is very versatile. Being able to cast those once per long rest, or that once per long rest, is good. Cure Wounds, Zone of Truth, also really good. I can't remember what Divine Favor does off the top of my head. I believe that's the Wheel or Woe one. I might be wrong there. No, it's not. That's augury. Divine Favor, it's like clerical stuff. Whatever. It's probably good. I'm kind of looking at like Thaumaturgy, Lesser Restoration, good. Cure Wounds, Zone of Truth, good. Guidance, Healing Word, good. So, I guess if you wanted to power game, it'd be like dependent on what level of play you're at. But thematically, this is nice to have. Guidance is always nice to have. These guys don't get dark vision, so light's always nice to have. Cure Wounds is like a once per long rest spell is good for anyone, whether you're a healer or a martial class. Just a quick heal, Cure Wounds on yourself. It's good. They're good. They're cleric spells. Of course they're good. And then resistance to radiant damage is always sick. Again, like a weird asthma. I'm very interested to see art of them. That'll be interesting. I'm excited for that. Dragonborn! Hehehe. Ah, they don't have the gem dragons in this list. Unfortunate. They're Dragonborns. Draconic. You choose your thing. Okay. Typical. breath weapon. As an action, did they change this to be like in Fizzbuns? 1d10 plus your character level. I think they did, yeah? Proficiency bonus number of times, yep. Resistance, dark vision, draconic language, yep. Oh, interesting. They give you draconic even though your race doesn't determine your language anymore. That's interesting. Oh, I'm so okay, it's right there. Yeah, Dragonborn as expected. Fire, poison, acid. Yep, that all looks normal. That's yeah, okay. Dwarf. This is interesting. So in my homebrew world, I'm just starting to toy with the idea that dwarves came once from golems, and I'm like playing with that. Maybe that's the way that we can delineate dwarves and just stop them being like round, short people. But this may help as well. This is a surprising little thing. Raised up from the earth in the old days of deity of the forge, called by various names as blah blah blah. God gave dwarves an affinity for stone and metal and living underground. Squat and often bearded, the original dwarves carved cities and strongholds on the mountainsides of the earth. And the Underdark, where those monsters were towering giants or subterranean horrors. Inspired by those tales, dwarves of any culture often sing of valorous deeds, especially with liver. Cool. So, dark vision, sweet. Dwarven resilience, sweet. Resistance to poison, damage, vengeance. Okay, that's normal. Dwarven toughness, yep. Forge wise, I think this is where it starts getting different. Your divine creator gave you an uncanny affinity for working with stone or metal. Tool proficiency with one of those things. Okay, no, that's good. That's fine. Relating it to a god, sure. Not as good as not as good as weapon proficiency, obviously, but who cares? Stone cunning. As a bonus action, you gain tremor sense for 10 minutes. Okay, that's sick. Dwarves are sick, man. You get to do like the touch the ground. There's something coming. Yeah, okay, yep. Dwarves are sick, man. And that works in my mind. They come from golems. Elves. I imagine elves aren't going to be anything too revolutionary. Dark vision, elven lineage. Very similar to prior. You get some spells. Well, very similar to the Ardling in that it's just like you choose a different version of the race. Always love options. Advantage on charmed, trance, drow have bigger dark vision, sweet. High elves. You can replace that cantrip. Okay, you get to replace cantrips. That's really good. I like that a lot. I'll probably be playing a high elf one day because of that. That's really good. Wood elf. You're faster. And you know Druid Carve. Sweet, they're fun. For sure. Gnomes. What's up with gnomes? Okay. I imagine pretty similar. 425, you know. Exactly 425. They only live to that. Humans, 80. Gnomes, 425. Dark vision advantage on career. Oh, okay. Wait, you have advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws? I guess that's more simple. I thought they would have. I thought they wrote something. Maybe it was this film Narbonne or whatever. So I'm kind of surprised they didn't put Durgar and Svernablin under Gnome and Dwarf, even though Drow are under Elf, now that I think about it. But I'm sure there's like a Forgotten Realms lore reason why. I thought they would change that to be like advantage against spell effects as opposed to advantage against magical effects, because I thought that was a change that would made in the past. But they're just making an advantage on all three of those saves. Which means if you play a martial class, gives you advantage in either strength, dex, or con, and then you pick up a feat, you can have quite literally 5. Wait, no, they give proficiency. The class gives proficiency. That might be a feat that gives you advantage in another saving throw. Basically, gnomes are fucking sick. Advantage in saving throws, in all three of those saving throws, are really, really good. That's really good. You choose a lineage. Forest gnomes, minor illusion, and speak with animal. Cool. You know some spells. Rock gnomes, you know, mending and prestidigitation. Oh, in addition, I was like, wow, man, rock gnomes. I mean, rock gnomes really got shafted here. This is all for rock gnomes. 10 minutes casting prestidigitation to create. Okay, that's an interesting flavor of the spell. I think that does complicate it a little bit. And it's also weird that they still kept it, but hey. Why not? Sure. That's what rock gnomes do. Cool. Halfling. Did they change luck? Brave. Perfect. You know. Contrast with elves. Halfling nimbleness. Cool. Luck. When you roll a 1 on a d20 of a d20 test, that's different wording. It's new wording. I'm gonna come back to that very soon. When you roll a 1 on the d20 of a d20 test, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. My assumption, and you have proficiency in the stealth skill. That's new. Why not? That is a bit weird, considering the all other class. That's weird. It's not bad. I think it's just thematically weird. My assumption with this d20 test is they're adding an overarching name so they don't have to say attack rolls, ability checks, saving throws. So they don't have to say that anytime. So anytime you roll a d20 test. Oh, I froze. Camera. Hello. Am I still streaming? It looks like I'm still streaming. Why is my camera broken? Why did my camera break? I'm still streaming, yeah? I am still streaming. I'm just broken. Okay, this is... Let me, Can I... Okay, we're back. That's whack. Anyway, yeah, me trying to do homebrew, it's annoying to be like attack rolls, ability check, saving throws. Because there's a bunch of other weird stuff, like, grapples, I think, are technically an ability check. Like initiative, people are like, oh yeah, that's an ability score, an ability check, or a skill, or whatever. Too many words, narrow it down to just test. I like that. That's my assumption. We'll read later. Orcs. Adrenaline rush. Dash action as a bonus action. Not the disengage though, so you know, that's really fucking good. Oh, and when you do so, gain a number of temporary hit points equal to proficiency bonus. Ooh, that's pretty good. And you get relentless endurance. Oh my god, orcs are amazing martial class. Okay, both of those together, like relentless endurance, already, mwah, sweet, beautiful. I'll come back to that. My Sweet Beautiful Awesome. Um, but with the adrenaline rush as well. I love it. I can't help but look and see that this says Abyssal, and I scroll down and that says Chthonic and Infernal. So they are doing that. Upper planes are Ardlings, lower planes are Tieflings. Ooh, I like this. Pronounced teeth. So Abyssal is the Abyss, Pandemonium, and Carceri. Chthonic. What's interesting? I forget. Yo, what's up, Juan? I'm like halfway through. I'm not halfway through. I am kind of halfway through. There was some new D&D stuff. Oh, my chat box isn't gonna work. Let me bear with me. If I make this like first, there you go. So, let's try this. Then can I like restart it? God, I'm so good at Twitch. Maybe your messages will come up, maybe they won't. I forget which book it was. I want to say not Mordenkainen's. Oh, it may have been like Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes, or like it wasn't Ravnica. There was one book that had like a bunch of other traits of like different heritage tieflings and like different spells you could have and all that sort of stuff. It was like 2 pages and it was complicated and it was dumb. But I think this. Oh, fuck yes. Okay, this is really good. Dark Vision. Sweet. Fiendish Legacy. Starting at that level, yeah. Yeah. Otherworldly Presence. Oh, okay. When you cast it with this trait, the spell uses the same kills. Sweet. So Abyssal, and like obviously I would like open these up to be changed, right? Because why not have like a Feywild Tiefling, or I guess now it would be a Feywild Ardling, which is actually that's an interesting comparison because Ardlings get cantrips, and Tieflings only get Thaumaturgy. So it's interesting that they aren't making them more similar. So at least at my home game, I'd be like, all right, well, if you want something other than Thaumaturgy, like sure, because if we go back to Ardling, right, like these guys get, where are they at? Where are you? Humans, Ardlings. These guys get a spell, like a cantrip, and then 2 spells, whereas Tieflings, they technically only get 2 spells. But this is our traditional Tiefling. You also know the Firebolt. Never mind. Why would they position it differently? That's really weird. Oh, I understand, because it's first level. Okay, I understand now. Ignore what I just said. This is fucking sick. Resistant to poison damage and poison spray. Nice. Raise sickness. Hold person. Once per. Oh. Necrotic, Chill Touch, False Life. Raven Feeblement. Isn't that really fucking good? No, I'm thinking of something else. Fire damage, Firebolt, Hellish Rebuke, and Darkness. And then Thaumaturgy on top of all that. Oh. It's just better. It's just better. Obviously better because you get more things, like you get Firebolt on top of what you used to be able to get, which was just Fire Resistance and Hellish Rebuke and Darkness. It's just better because you get more things. But having rules as written have this flexibility is really, really, really good. And it makes my life as a homebrewer so much easier because I have more like flexibility with what I can see. I can see that they basically get a free damaging cantrip. What's to say if someone wanted to play like an arcane based Ardling or Tiefling, where it's like, okay, yeah, I was born of a plane of magic, just like pure magic. I don't know. One of the other planes, like they're more in tune with, they wanted to play an Ardling wizard or something like that. What's to say their third level spell isn't like magic missile or something? I mean, I think it's technically like second level spell. No, Hellish Rebuke's a first level spell. What's to say it can't be like mage armor? Something like that. Anyway, gorgeous, beautiful, sexy. Character backgrounds. This is where it gets very interesting for me. Because they've changed ability scores to go to the background, not to the character. Which I really, really... And there's feats on a background. So, your character's background is a collection of characteristics that represents the place and occupation of what that were most formative for the character before they embarked on their life's adventure. You have these options. Build a background by using the rules in Build Your Background. Select a pre-made background. Select a pre-made background and customize it with the rules in the Build Your Background. So it's saying, use ours or homebrew. No matter which background you choose, consider these questions. How does your character background? Yeah, cool. Well-building questions. Build your background. Using the rules here, you can, when you build a background, there's background features, cool. Where do they spend most of their time? Cool. If you instead decide to customize your pre-made background, you could choose any features in the background and replace them with the features below with the same name. For example, if you want to change a background's language feature, you can replace the feature with... Okay, cool. So, background features. Ability scores. Same as it used to be, and then got changed to Tasha's, and now it's just on backgrounds. Which forces you to pick a background, which forces people to think about their backstory and make them better role players. Sweet. Skill proficiencies. Choose 2 skills. Using this as the example, you'll be given some, but you could also choose anything, because this is a really, really good way of doing it. Tool proficiencies. Yep. Language. Yeah. Cool. Feat. Your character gains 50 gold. It's not based on your class anymore? And also, that's a lot of gold. It used to be like 10. Oh, to spend on starting equipment. Ooh. Interesting. I can't look over that you get Magic Initiate Divine. Isn't Magic Initiate historically didn't say divine, it said cleric, didn't it? Magic Initiate? You choose which class. My theory that they're getting rid of spell lists. You choose a class. Are they gonna get rid of spell lists? Are they just gonna have like divine arcane and then like some third for the edge cases? And when I say edge cases, I mean like bard, druid, a little bit of sorcerer, warlock even, where it's like, I guess bard could be arcane, sorcerer could be arcane, but you could also lump sorcerer and warlock because it's divine in the sense that it was like given to you, but it's not God's, but it's not learnt like arcane is. And if those were all arcane, then it'd be like just cleric and paladin that have divine. I'm really excited to see if there's feats described in this document. Artisan. Crafter. That sounds new. Referencing my favorite little website here. I don't believe crafter is a current feat. It is not. I'm excited to read through these these feats, and I'm not too worried about like what these numbers actually are, because again, you can just change them, like they said. Skilled, nice. Criminal, the alert feat, that makes sense. Bit of extra gold, like sweet. Magic initiating arcane. I'm very interested to musician. That's not one. Wait, so crafter would be like an artificer. This is like a bard. And that's like a wizard, and that's like a cleric. So are they letting you are they making it easier to multiclass without necessarily having to multiclass? Because you could just like go a tad into artificer. Maybe that's a new name for Artificer Initiate. I doubt it is, but it would be nice if it was. A farmer? Learning Halfling? The languages are probably a bit weird, but, you know, they're just thematic. They're just a start. These are example backstories. Savage Attacker? Oh, that's it. Yeah, that's a feat, yeah? Savage Attacker? Yeah. A guard. Sweet. Guide? Primal? That would be your druids and your rangers and your sorcerers, I would assume. Magic Initiate Primal. For a hermit as well. Yeah. Laborer. Interesting. Noble. Draconic. Make sure. Pilgrim. Heal. Cool. Magic Initiate Arcane. I really like that you can get Magic Initiate Arcane with, like, feats. With backgrounds. Because that opens up the world to having a lot more magic in it, which makes sense for something like Forgotten Realms. I think in my homebrew world, might shuffle it a bit. Hello, Thistle? Is that how you pronounce that? I am digging it. I'm really, really interested. I think it thematically makes a lot more sense with the direction that they're trying to go, and I just am excited. Cycle? Perfect. I am just really excited. I love that they're making backgrounds way more important. I really, really like it a lot. And adding a feat to that, obviously strong, but it's adding more tools, and I think it makes low-level play less scary. Yeah, it's very good news. It's very good. This is a good thing. And even if this is a little bit overtuned and stronger than they're going to make it in the future, I think this is just cool. They don't have to do anything. They could release this now and it would be fine. It also seems like I haven't gotten all the way through the document yet, and there's no class information in here, but I have a suspicion that they're getting rid of spell lists. And I'm sure this is something that is being talked about online and blah blah blah, but I think they're getting rid of spell lists because Magic Initiate traditionally doesn't say arcane, and there was divine, and there's also primal is a word that they've used. There's a lot of really interesting word choices that they're using in here, which are very, very exciting to me. Common sign language. Oh, adding that as a language. Starting languages. Fuck yes. Fuck yes. I mean, yeah. And better examples of who can use stuff. Redeemed Lurkin? Fuck yeah, man. I haven't downloaded the doc yet, but trying to hear it from others first. My hard of hearing friends will love that. Absolutely. And the fact that it can just throwing that in as a language allows more characters to pick it up, which makes it a lot more obviously accessible, but easier for people who wouldn't normally do that, like who wouldn't normally think of that to then take it. So I tried making a ranger a while ago, and I was surprised at how many languages they got, and I like ran out of interesting languages to take. But that's adding an extra language that would have just made whatever that, if that character became a thing, would have made that character a lot more enjoyable to play in new areas. And so you can like play with these tools of like disability as like a storytelling device now, without having to fear of like like excluding people. Fucking awesome. Feats. This is an interesting part that I'm very excited to read, based on obviously every background gets a feat. They have prerequisites now, which some used to, obviously. There's racial feats, which like prerequisite you have to be like elf or something, for example. But everything having a prerequisite? Don't know. Let's see how it goes. Actually, real quick. Oh, throwing druidic on a rare language. Sweet. Actually, writing these into these areas makes it just more cohesive, makes more sense. Okay. Description of feat contains the following parts. Level. Each feat has a level. To take a feat, your level must equal or exceed the feat's level. Okay. D&D 2nd edition vibes. Okay. I don't know a huge amount about the other editions, so please, like, if this sounds like an older edition thing, let me know. I'm very interested in that. I'm sure that there's some feats. So obviously there's strong feats, right? Like lucky and all of that. What the feats go? Yeah. There's some feats here that they'd be like, keep that for a higher level thing. Actually, now that I think about it, there's a bunch of in Strixhaven, right? They added. Do they have these here? Maybe they don't. Oh yeah. Like you have Strixhaven Initiate, and then like Strixhaven Mascot. The prerequisite is having Strixhaven Initiate. I'm pretty sure. Which I didn't like, because that means like a minimum of level 8 or maybe level 4. Actually, now, if you play a human, you get 2 feats at level 1 because of the background. There is new writings for humans and a bunch of races in here, but humans still get an extra feat. So you still get 2 feats at level 1, so you could still do that. I'm getting off track. Prerequisite, yeah, and repeatable. That's pretty niche, I think, but there is a couple things that do that, so worth having. Alert. This is, when you roll initiative, you can add your proficiency bonus to the roll. Because, okay, alert previously increased your... I'm sorry if I'm going back and forth and that's a bit flashy for you guys. It previously... Oh, okay. I must be mistaking it with, like, perceptive or something. It's not a feat, but whatever. Add a proficiency bonus rather than a +5. Okay. Immediately after you roll initiative, you can swap your initiative with the initiative 1 willing ally in the same combat. That's very interesting. I don't know how that would work, like, narratively, but it's a very fun ability. Crafter. This is an interesting one. I'm also not like committing too hard to forming opinions of these because we don't know what the classes look like. Like, we don't know how... I don't know how Barbarian is going to change, so I don't know how things will affect all of that. So I'm more getting a vibe. I'm not trying to read like into the weeds of the words. But that's a very fun gameplay ability. That's obviously a nerf, but who cares? Crafter. I hope they change... There hasn't been any wording in here about making tools more interesting. So I hope tools get more interesting as well. If they give tools the same treatment they have to backgrounds, that would be interesting. Gain proficiency with 3 different artisan tools. When you buy a non-magical item, you receive a 20% discount on it. Again, narratively, kind of weird. But I do like that they're playing with that idea. That's just a thing that you get. I don't know how. Yeah, again, I don't know how you would narratively weave that in of like, you go up to the shop and the shopkeeper's like, that'll be 30 gold, and you're like, no, 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 I can build things. It'll actually be like 16 gold for me. That's not how math works, but you know what I'm saying. Actually, it might be how math works. Faster crafting. When you craft an item using a tool which you have for proficiency, the required crafting time is reduced by 20%. That feels very much like the kind of thing. This feels like the feat that you spring on your DM at the last minute, where they're like, "I want to try." So you're like, "Hey, I want to try and build a clock," and they're like, "Okay, that'll take you about a day," and you're like, "No, it won't. You're wrong, Mr. DM. It'll take me 20% less than that." Healer feat. Healer, if I remember correctly, is one of my least favorite feats because it's boring. You can stabilize a creature that and regains 1 hit point. Oh, okay. Well, actually, you can spend the use of a healer's kit, so you'd have to keep buying healer's kits. But it just does like a half a cure wounds. I'm surprised that it's +4. Why would it not be plus a ability score? Anyway, that's what it used to be. If you have a healer's kit, you can expend 1 use of it and tend to a creature within 5 feet of its action. You know, expend 1 of its hit die. It's actually using hit die. Healing rerolls. Whenever you roll a die to determine a number of hit points. With this or the battle medic's feat. Where's battle medic? Oh, that. Okay. Cool. Lucky. Is it the same? Have a number of luck points equal to your proficiency bonus. Wasn't it capped at 3 previously? It was! Now you get 6 of them! D20 test. Here's that word again. As opposed to attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. Again, no confirmation of that, but my assumption is that's in place of attack roll, ability check, or saving throw. For 2 turns, you can spend 1 luck point to give yourself advantage and roll. Disadvantage. Yeah, so they really went, hey, luck. You know how everyone thinks it's too strong? What if we doubled the amount of times you can use it at high levels? Magic Initiate. Different spells. Oh, getting rid of spell lists, baby! Fuck yeah! I hate spell lists. They're dumb and they're stupid. They're also really weird because the ranger has such a unique spell. I really hope that they're getting rid of spell casting on a ranger and just give them like battle maneuvers, because then people will be less complainy and it'll be like, oh yeah, it's like a battle master fighter, but a ranger, because nobody reads spells. Or okay, I'm getting excited. I might be making shit up. They've changed Magic Initiate to not say like cleric, bard, druid, wizard, warlock, and they've changed it to arcane, divine, primal, which makes me think they're getting rid of spell lists and just having an arcane spell list, a divine spell list, and a primal spell list. That's my assumption. Cantrips? Okay, sweet. Yeah, first level spell you can cast once a day. Sweet! I love how modular this all feels. Yeah. It feels, to me... I mean, everyone gets a feat. That alone makes everything so much better. But it feels very like the race. Some of the races had lineages within the race, and that was a bit choicey, a bit modular. But yeah, the backgrounds are just better. They're just better. Backgrounds are great now. Musician. You gain tool proficiency with 3 musical instruments. Inspiring song. When you as you finish a short or a long rest, you can play a musical instrument, whichever. You can play a song on a musical instrument with which you have tool proficiency and give inspiration. Oh! This is better than a bard? Because inspiration gives you advantage. I'll say it again, Cycle. I had this revelation earlier when we first read this, because humans humans, as written in this, when they finish a long rest, they get inspiration. So I forgot. Reading that was the first time I thought about inspiration in over a year. But giving advantage after a short rest to literally any class or any character, that feels better than a bard. Actually, well, bard can do it at any time, but it's only like a D6 or a D8 or whatever, right? It goes up. Obviously, if a bard could do both, that'd be pretty fucking sick. But I think this is interesting. I'm going to keep this in mind, and then I should have like a notebook, because I want to see if they've changed inspiration. Because that makes, having it here and comparing it to a bard makes me think they've changed inspiration. Savage Attacker. You can roll the weapons damage dice twice and use either roll against the target. Oh my god, they've just cleaned up that wording. Because that wording used to be like, you may choose one of the dice to re-roll, but must use the new roll. But this is just saying you get advantage on damage. And you get to choose which one it is. So if you technically want it to be lower, you could. Skilled, repeatable, yes. Choose 3 skills in which you lack proficiency. Yo, they're like giving out proficiency like fucking... I was gonna say candles. You don't give out candles. A human could then get 6 proficiencies at first level, then a class on top of that, plus 2 additional proficiencies from the background itself. So that's 8 at first level without requiring a class. I think classes give like 2 to 3. A rogue currently gives 4. So say you go rogue, that's 12 proficiencies in skills at first level. I watched a Wintry Wyvern video like a week ago, and it takes 7 levels to get to 18. In current 5th edition. That's 12 at first. And then I assume if you just got up to 4th level, took skilled again, that would probably fill out the list. That's good. I thought it'd be proficiency in 1 skill. It is 3. Tavern Brawl is a bit more complicated now. I did think about taking Tavern Brawler for a character that I might be playing one day, because I think it says like proficiency in improvised weapons, and that's something that I'm playing around with some other homebrew. Yeah, proficiency in improvised weapons. Are they just defining what an improvised weapon is more rigorously? Enhanced unarmed strike. When you hit someone, it does more damage. Cool. Damage rerolls. You can re-roll your unarmed strikes. That's really strong for a monk, because I believe that would be the same wording. Shove. When you hit a creature with an unarmed strike as a part of your attack action on you, you can deal damage. You can also push the target 5 feet away, including that in an attack. Perfect. Awesome. No longer a strength contest. Really good. Just quality of life. Actually, that's a good way of pushing it. A lot of this improves quality of life for everyone. It makes people think about their backstories more. It makes feats more accessible. Everything is more modular. It feels happier. My body is feeling joy. Furniture as weapons. Using the rules of a great club or smaller medium furniture, and the rules for a club for tiny furniture. That's what people did anyway for improvised weapons. So they've just... I guess they haven't rigorously defined it. They've narrowed it to furniture. Which is... I kind of prefer improvised weapons, because the core of the character that I was going to take for it was... he picks up like a crowbar. And how do you define a crowbar? Is it a club? Probably a club. But then if he wants to take like a sheet of corrugated iron, Like, is that a club? It's slicey? I don't know. Does he have proficiency in a sheet of metal that he rolls up? It's not furniture. Tough. As it was before. Cool. That's a wide selection of very interesting feats to build off of. And I love the Arcane Divinal Primal spell lists. I love that. I haven't looked at this before, and so I don't know if they... This is sexy. I don't know what else... Maybe they have the spell lists defined in this document? I don't know. Let's look at this glossary. So there is a couple words that they've been using in here, which is... Oh! Hello. An arcane spell draws on the ambient magic of the multiverse. Bards, sorcerers, warlocks, and wizards harness this magic, as do artificers. For a partial list of arcane spells, see the spell list sections later in this document. That's good. I'm kind of surprised that sorcerers and warlocks are on there. But I guess I understand. And I guess the interesting thing would be like, okay, well, a Divine Soul Sorcerer can pick from the Divine spell list instead, or in addition to, which would give you access to 2/3 of the magic in the game, as opposed to just a bit extra now. Previously, so. Artisan's Tools. Cool. Creature type, cool. Sweet. D20 test. This is the interesting thing. The 3 main D&T rolls the game. Ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. Yep. And that makes it so much easier to describe to new players as well. Because it's like, okay, what do you want to do? I want to throw this rock at the guy's head because I want to get his attention. That's something that a new player would definitely say. It's like, okay, roll a d20. That's a test. We'll do a d20 test. So much easier than like, okay, I need you to make an attack roll, but using your acrobatics because it's a skill check, but it's an attack roll because of throw. It's like, nah, just make a d20 test. And it makes it easier to describe abilities as well, because like Bardic Inspiration, great example. You can add that to ability checks, attack rolls, and saving throws. That's so many extra characters that you have to write in a book. Now it is 4 letters. A d20 test. And that makes homebrew so much easier as well. I can go through all of my fucking documents and I don't have to be like, you can do it on a d20 test. It's going to be amazing for new players. I think they were talking about how this is like the next generation of D&D, which is so, like, corporate. But it's really, really exciting. And again, quality of life, right? So, easier for old players as well. Automatically fails regardless of any modifiers on the roll. I'm sure people will still choose to ignore that if they want to. As with rolling a 20, automatically succeeds regardless of any modifiers on the roll. No worries. Thank you for dropping by. Have a good day, Cycle. A player's character also gains inspiration when rolling the 20. That's way more than I thought they would do. So previously, in 5th edition, inspiration basically didn't exist. You would constantly forget about it. You get inspiration when you roll a 20 on a test. Doesn't bypass limitations on the test, such as strength or line of sight, that do 20 bypasses only bonuses and penalties to the roll. Weapons and unarmed strikes have a special feature for player characters. Critical hits for player characters. As a DM, I'm still going to run that for monsters because it's more fun. But it is interesting that they only say for player characters. If a player character rolls a 20 on an attack roll, the attack is also a critical hit, which means it deals extra damage. You roll the damage dice for the second time and add the second roll for extra damage. I'm going to choose to ignore that and do double damage instead. But the fact that you get inspiration when rolling at 20, that's... They're doing a much better job of giving out inspiration, you know? We'll see what happens getting there. A divine spell draws on the power of the gods in the outer planes. Clerics and paladins harness. Okay, well that's interesting. Clerics and paladins having the same spell list now. Why would you play a cleric then? I guess spell slot number? I didn't think about that with arcane spells. Why would you play a warlock if you only get 2 spell slots? And does that mean they all get like Vicious Mockery and Wish? I'm really, really interested to see what they do with the classes. Gaming sets. A gaming set's grappled condition. Attacks affected. You have disadvantage in attack rolls against any target other than the grappler. Makes sense. The grappler, actually putting this into words is really good. The grappler can drag or carry you. Suffers the slowed condition. They're adding a slowed condition? That's really good. That's really useful. While grappled, you can make a dexterity or strength saving throw. Making a saving throw is interesting. It used to be a grapple check. Incapacitated condition. Inactive, can't take actions or reactions. Your concentration is broken. Oh, yeah. Okay, just putting that into words, though, is good. Yeah, because I think it used to be subtext where it was like, or described like in the concentration section of the book or something like that, where it was like, oh, you lose concentration if you become incapacitated, but it's more like, nah, your concentration is just broken. Can't speak. If you're incapacitated when you roll initiative, you have a disadvantage on the roll. That's interesting. That's very good. Because incapacitated isn't unconscious. Okay. Inspiration. When you have inspiration, you can expend it to give yourself advantage on a d20 test. You must decide to do so before rolling a die. Cool. The main way a character gains inspiration is by rolling a 20 on a d20 test. The DM can also award inspiration to the character who's done something that is particularly heroic or amusing. That's very funny, just to use the word amusing. You can never have more than one instance of inspiration. If something gives you inspiration and you already have it, you can give inspiration to a player character in your group who lacks it. You could hand out inspirations so easily. As a human bard with that one feat that we read, musician, after a long rest, wait, the number of allies you can affect in this way equals your proficiency bonus. Oh, you can already do that, never mind. Actually, as a human musician, you can give inspiration to everyone in your party. At the end, at the beginning of every day. That is, actually, that's a real, oh man. Is that a tie-in with the D&D movie? Because Chris Pine is a human bard and a human musician, and the theory is that he's not actually a bard and he's just a musician pretending to be a bard and he can't actually do magic? Is that the theory? That's my theory. If you still have inspiration when you start a long rest, you lose that inspiration when you start a long rest. Interesting. Interesting. Benefits of the rest. Interrupting the rest is interrupted by combat or by 1 hour of walking, casting spells, or similar activity. I'm choosing to ignore that because I use gritty rules. Gritty reality. Musical instrument. Cool. Primal spells. Druids and rangers. I do think it's very weird that Divine has only clerics and paladins. Primal has only druids and rangers. Which is like, cool. Full caster and a half caster. If they continue to do that with rangers. which I guess they will if they've described them here. But then Arcane has Bard Fullcaster, Sorcerer Fullcaster, Wizard Fullcaster, Warlock. Complicated. Arcane has 4, whereas everyone else has 2. Which I guess makes sense because it's arcane magic and blah 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 blah, but... Anyway, slowed. You must spend 1 extra foot of movement for every foot you move using your speed. It's interesting that they don't say your movement speed is halved. I'm sure there's a reason for that, but that's essentially what that means. Attack rolls against you have advantage. Dexterity saves affected. You have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Cool. Mostly for the slow spell, I think, but also for like a grapple, right? Where that makes sense. You're slowed. Chill proficiencies. Yep. Tremor sense. Creature with tremor sense can pinpoint the location of creatures and moving objects within a specific range. This is actually, this might be the first time it's been given to a player character. Is the Dwarf. Anything it's detecting are both in contact with the same surface, such as the ground or walls. Tremor sense can't detect creatures or objects in the air, and tremor sense doesn't count as a form of sight. Unarmed attack. Oh, okay, this is either a punch, a grapple check, or a shove. They're all under unarmed strike. I think that is an interesting clarification for monks. Spell list. Oh, we're almost done. Okay. Well, I'll watch a video then after this. Spell list. So the arcane spell list. Oh, they are very short. They are cantrips and first level spells. I assume it's what we would expect. Yep. Arcane. Arcane. Hex, yeah, cool. What we'd expect. Yep, first levels. Interesting that Divine's a bit shorter. I guess Clerics used to get a bunch of these as well. Yeah, this will be really interesting to see when they release what the classes look like. Or maybe even just some of the classes. If they just give us, like, Fighter, Wizard, Cleric, I guess? No. Only give us Fighter and Wizard. I'm okay seeing just 2 classes to see how a Martial and a Spellcaster work. Because this is simplifying it a lot. And 5e was already a crazy simplification from what I've heard of, like, previous editions. So, this just simplifies it so much more, which is really, really good. Gives you more options to choose from, rather than, like, limiting. Like, there was lots of options before. It technically doesn't change the amount of options you have. It just changes the way that you achieve those options. And so rather than being, like, a wizard who picks from the wizard spell list, like, you could be playing with a bard who takes similar spells. Anyway, it's interesting. I like this a lot. Interesting that a cleric could now get smites. Again, I'm very interested to see, like, and a paladin could get guiding bolt. Like, I'm very, very, very interested to see how the classes work with this. A druid can get Hunter's Mark, which is, like, the ranger's thing. Interesting that Thunderwave is here. Is Thunderwave over here? It is also here. Okay, so the lists do overlap. Okay. I love this overall. I really, 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 really like the Ardlings. I would like... I think for my partner's sake, I'd rather if they didn't have animal heads, so that, you know, that we could just do, like, tiefling things where maybe they don't have horns, but they're a bit more like Asmar, where they have, like, I don't know, angel halos or something. I don't give a fuck. Just animal heads are a bit... That'll turn people off, and that makes me sad. They'll turn into furry bait. But let's watch this video.
we have a new Unearthed Arcana, but this is.
I hope that's not too loud.
This has to do with the player's handbook that is coming out in a couple of years.
Yes, in 2024.
We begin with Origins, right?
Appropriately enough, we begin at the beginning. And so this Unearthed Arcana is the first in
Unearthed Arcana. God, I am a React channel now.
Articles that come out every
Gross. I don't like that.
over the
I'm doing it
course
anyway.
of not only the next year, but probably the next year and a half or so, where we're going to present different pieces.
He said that like
of
every
the
month or
player's
whatever, right?
handbook, but with brand new content, then also familiar content, but with new elements,
Is Jeremy
updates.
Crawford?
This is the chance for D&D fans to let us know what they think.
Did they say he said every month,
Really
right? That's the
lend
thing that he
their
said?
voice to
I should just go
chorus
look,
D&D
but
fans that will be really letting us know where they want us to go next with this game that many of us have been playing for decades, and so many people.
This is an hour long.
Since the 5th edition Player's Handbook came out in 2014. And so, with this first one, we thought, why not start at the start?
Oh yeah, they're aiming for
And
2024.
that is
So that'll be 10 years since
figuring
5th edition
out where
was
the
released, which is
character in
wild
the
to think
game
about.
come from. And so when we say your character origin, that's what we're talking about.
What are you talking
What
about? If you
is
just
the
read through the fucking
that
Unearthed Arcana,
shaped
I'ma
who
be...
you are and was formative for you before you became an adventurer. Your adventuring life is largely expressed by your character class. And so character classes we'll get to in some upcoming Unearthed Arcana articles. In this one, we're going to be looking
Upcoming
at
makes me
three
think,
main
not next
elements
month,
that
but maybe towards the end of the year.
together express who you were in the earliest stages of your life. And that is your character's race, your character's background, as well as whatever feat that you get as part of that background. Because yes, one of the new things here, which
I didn't look at
recent
prerequisites.
D&D books have already signaled was coming, and many.
Yeah.
What did I do? Oh, I did that. Okay. I'll do this. Oh! No, what I wanted. I won't do that. I forgot to look at the prerequisites of all the feats. I assumed that there wasn't that many. Now that I think about it. Simple backgrounds. I like them. They were cool. Feats. No prerequisite. Obviously repeatable. Prerequisite. Okay, no prerequisites in this book. That's interesting.
Fans have already guessed coming that everyone's background will now give them a first level feat. But we'll talk more about feats, I think, a little later in the video.
So to begin, since this is about origins, let's start with race.
It's wild
So
to me that
the
Todd has
character's
grown a
race
hair.
in D&D represents
I think I started watching D&D Beyond stuff when he was bald
when you make your character
during COVID,
you decide
and now he has
is your
hair.
character a member of
And
the
that
human
is
race or one
an
of the
observation.
fantastical races. Various race options have appeared in many of our books over the last 8 years. Now is our time in this Unearthed Arcana to revisit our old friends, the races that are in the Player's Handbook. And so here we're going to be able to look at, all of us together as D&D fans, the latest versions of humans, elves, dwarves, and others.
God, this is riveting
Many
content.
familiar aspects of
I mean, it is.
races
It's
are
good
still
stuff.
Here. Many of the traits that people have been using for the last 8 years.
I,
they're still on the
however,
page. But then there are also new traits.
think I have
Some
ADHD.
of those traits that we've been all using in our characters.
And also, I can't like
Great
make
example
funny
of this.
bits
In the dwarf,
while
you
I'm
still have
trying to
stone
listen.
cutting. But now, a dwarf, as long as they're in contact with stone in some way, whether they're standing on it, touching it, dwarves now, a certain number of times per day, can give themselves tremor sense. Meaning
Which is
they can sense
awesome.
the earth itself.
That's so cool.
Creatures nearby, moving objects. We're really leaning into the mythic stories of each of the race options in the game and looking for ways to make them sort of the version truest to themselves. Like
Right.
something that we would talk about while working on them is we want this dwarf to be the dwarfiest dwarf.
Right.
We want the elf to be the elfiest elf. And so we've been looking at ways of not only maintaining continuity with what sort of the general
humaniest
silhouette
human.
of that race option is in the 2014 Player's Handbook, but again, bring some new elements to the foreground. Give you some more fun things that you'll be able to do during play. So that's another element. People are going to see in the races that ones that maybe in the past didn't have an active ability, something they could do during play, now they might have one. And so the dwarf's tremor sense is an example of this. Now the dwarf has something that they can use that makes them feel dwarfy and will have usefulness in adventures, while also having some of the familiar traits that they had before, the resistance to poison.
I like that philosophy.
Right.
That's a good philosophy.
I love the narrative hook of that, just because if you're a minor,
I do think that people will start to complain about power creep now that I think about it, especially with like tieflings, because they just get new stuff for free. And humans kind of get inspiration for free, and there's just more stuff. But I like more stuff, and everyone likes more stuff, but they will still complain about power creep.
What can we do to this to make it even more fun? Give a new dimension of play for people.
Yo, what's up, bagged head?
Halfling, their gnome.
Not just tieflings, Ardlings now as well,
In some cases,
which are
there are
upper planar
options where before One
tieflings.
example I'm really excited about.
I've gone through the book, not the book, the document. So if you want to ask any questions, I'm just watching this to, round out the information on this new Unearthed Arcana.
And now lean into here in this UA for the Player's Handbook, and that is when you create a tiefling, you decide.
It is Mordenkainen's Tome of Foes. I was correct earlier.
Legacy. And one of those options.
I just got all of the 5e rules. Are they all useless? No, not at all. Completely backwards compatible is what they're saying.
Which has to do. Each of these options has to do with
I think
lower planes.
there's a couple small the way I'm looking at it is you've kind of got like a couple different ways you can choose to play the game. Like obviously there's this stuff that they're looking to release in 2024, so don't even worry about it. There's this stuff which they're thinking about, but you could still choose to play the game like 5e. So let's get D&D expansion with some extra rules. Absolutely. It could be a rewrite as well. The way that D&D Beyond is like labeling things, they're calling it like Legacy. So 5e would become like a Legacy edition. But I would look at it the same as like World of Warcraft Classic, where you can still play it if you want, and there's nothing wrong about it, and they'll still work together, but there's other options here. Which I like.
And if you pick up Abyssal, Chaotic Evil Planes. Now, of course, the Tiefling's moral outlook is not connected to the sort of origin of their mystical powers, which are shaped, those powers, by this choice. So if you want the Tiefling you have already in the 2014 Player's Handbook, choose the Infernal Legacy, and you're going to see you have the familiar abilities, although you have a little more now. Because now, in addition
cantrip
to
as well,
magical abilities you had before, you now also have the Firebolt cantrip, because
which is
able to hurl
great.
fire.
It's so fun.
To
I've got a tiefling. I'm a DM. I got a tiefling man who's got Firebolt now. I'm a bit worried about my school's RPG club. I'm going to try and be a DM. Hells yeah, man! That's really exciting. Well done. I applaud and salute you. Just have fun with it. Like, it's just hanging out with cool people with this context around it. And if you ever get worried, roll a d20. Or, with the new terminology, make a d20 test. Is what they're calling it. Unsure if the teacher will allow me to yet, though. That's okay. If they don't, then, hey, just gather some mates and hang out, have some fun. I just realized that this is not centered.
There's another fun choice that Tieflings will have that they didn't have before, and it's also a choice that humans have in this Unearthed Arcana, and that is their size. If you are a human or a tiefling, you're now going to be able to decide whether you are medium.
I'm gonna Ravnica if they do. Hells yeah!
Small.
That'll be awesome.
Because first off,
Ravnica,
there are humans
I think they have.
so we want to make sure
They have like the Loxodon and Simic hybrids and stuff as well, right? That's them. I'm really bad at learning settings, but I'm very interested in like the options that Ravnica has available, and so I would love to learn it.
A theme then that we carry over into
That'd be really
and
exciting.
A new race that is also in this Unearthed Arcana. Would you like to talk about this?
Yes, I would love to.
So
these are very unique.
yes, so in this Unearthed Arcana, we introduce a race that we're calling the Ardlings. Ardlings are also a people of the Outer Planes, like Tieflings, and like Aasimar, who appear in Monsters of the Multiverse. And Ardlings are associated with 3 different groups of upper planes. You'll see there's a parallelism here. Tieflings are associated.
Each guild has their own spells and everything. That is sick.
3 main segments of the lower planes.
Sorry, I want to hear them talk about the Ardlings because they're brand new.
Of the upper planes, they can be small or medium, just like Tieflings, and all of their abilities are themed around, the heavens and whatnot. But also visually, they are really going to stand out because one thing that sets Ardlings apart from, say, their Aasimar cousins is they all have the face of an animal. And what we're doing here is we're really leaning into the fact that going all
Yeah, like a diet angel.
Many of
In the same way that a tiefling is a
don't actually
diet
look like
demon,
humans. Many
these
of
guys
them
are diet
source
angels.
From the game's long history, and I'm thinking here of Gardenals,
Which
Houndfolk,
I would have thought
many
Aasimar filled that
specific
void, but
gods, many gods themselves in
they're going in a
in
different
these
direction.
pantheons.
But general mythology.
Yes, but also in
And they have
different
animal
mythologies
heads, which
have
is
the visages of animals.
interesting.
And so that is true of the Ardlings. where
I
we
would enjoy
play
that.
these folk
I had this
who
whole rant at the
trace
beginning
their
of
lineages to
the
upper
stream today
planes,
where I
and
don't
we
like
also
playing things
decide,
with human
what
faces.
animal appearance
However,
you
my
have.
partner
You know, for a
loves
bear
tieflings,
or a
hates
lion
animal
or
faces.
or an eagle.
So
That is
they're
going to
gonna-
make it so that when you're walking,
they're
down
going to
the
have an
street,
interesting
people are going to
relationship
know
with
there's
Ardlings.
something special about you, especially when you then also temporarily sprout your spectral wings to go on short little bouts of flight. So this will also be the first time that we.
I think they're very
introduce a
exciting though.
race
I'm
of
really
flight
interested to see
in the
art
player's
of an
game.
Ardling.
Right, and we saw that in a previous UA as well. But yeah, this limited flight because flight is an interesting thing.
Yes, and this flight definitely is just for little bouts because the Ardlings do not have physical wings all the time, but they can channel their connection to the upper planes to temporarily have these luminous wings that they use to maybe reach a hard to reach place. I like to imagine that some of them, especially with their animal features, might sometimes just use this ability to get that cat stranded up there in the tree.
Yeah, nothing nefarious.
Right. Although just as tieflings determine their
There was always a
moral
Dragonborn when I
compasses,
played because
so
I just got the
Ardlings as
expansion as
well.
well.
So,
Fuck yeah, man. I
just
love
because,
Dragonborn. Oh my god.
might have been from Mount Celestia doesn't mean your
Puzzles and
Ardling,
touch and government and everything. I mean,
shares
bread and
the
butter
moral
now. Oh.
outlook of that plane. So you could play a
Elves,
Celestial
yeah.
Ardling, and I think it would
Yeah,
be
the good thing about D&D is you've always been able to play,
being
or at least
introduced
recently, you've been able to play
yeah,
without
already.
needing the core
I'm
rules,
playing a bad
which is
Ardling.
awesome.
100%. You have unleashed my.
But
my
yeah,
bad
the big
UI
takeaway that I take from
already.
this
I know,
new
so I'm
sort
very
of
excited for this.
And
this
I
new
think
direction
find
is
out
it's just
if the bad
easier,
Ardling
and it's
is,
like better quality of life, easier to
exalted,
explain,
holy,
better for new
or
players.
idyllic.
Oh,
Like,
wow,
So-
interesting. Yeah, no.
Yeah, I definitely recommend taking a look
And
if you'd
because-
like, but
because just as in this
again,
tiefling, that
does
force
not rule out
will,
your old stuff
give
at all.
your character different magical abilities themed to the sort of group of planes that your character's legacy is connected to.
So one of the races that is included right from the get is
More simplified?
player's handbook.
More or less, yeah. A lot of the wording is
Orc
simplified.
Is the orc.
So the orc is
To my understanding, it's
another
pretty
new race.
pretty notoriously, the Player's Handbook and the Dungeons Master's Guide were pretty poorly written. They were quite quite complex to understand. So it's really just a rewrite to make them actually make sense. And some things being added, so a thing called a D20 test, which is just a overarching term for attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. So rather than having to say each of those three every single time you want a test, you just say a D20 test.
Are now going to be there in the game's core rulebook.
But man, Tieflings got there first. We also have backgrounds, and backgrounds have become so much more important.
Oh yeah, I didn't think about that. It said orc, not half orc. So it's just a legit orc. We got big, strong men. And they're very good. Orcs are very good martial classes. This is some Tiefling supremacy, yeah. Dude, Tieflings are sick. Tiefling and Ardlings,
This emphasis on narrative
they're gonna
is
rule the
something
world.
that people will
They're so much cooler than elves.
glimmers of also back in the race section.
Dragonborn are also good, because we got Gem Dragonborn now, and who doesn't want to be like a transparent dragon man?
Players now officially. This is something people have been
Changeling are probably my favorite. Changelings are good. Very
in
exciting.
a sort of story space between your race choice and your background choice.
I haven't.
I
Yeah,
want you to consider the
there was
possibility
changelings in
that your
Monsters of the
character,
Multiverse. I'll have to take a look at them,
might
see
have
how they got
parents
changed.
of
Because,
different
haha.
kinds. Your one parent might be a dwarf, the other one might be a halfling. One parent might be a human, and the other one might be an orc. Some of these pairings the game has embraced in the past. We're now opening it up so to encourage people to realize many pairings are possible, and when you do it, what you do is you choose one of
Literally, my
those
fucking
with
homebrew
each
world was
parent
built off of that
quality
idea, more or less.
traits.
But
But then you can mix together the visual qualities of the two to determine how your character looks.
fuck yeah,
And
man!
so
Oh,
you
that's
have-
so
you have-
exciting.
You have two
Oh, that's
options to
so
draw
good.
from for the aesthetic of your
Currently
character,
using it as a
and
villain,
then you
section-
choose which one is giving you
That's really
special
good.
traits,
Do that. That's a very
characters,
good idea.
size, and speed, that sort of thing.
And like you said, players have been doing this for so long. Like my own wife plays a gnome, half goblin, a noblin.
Right.
Like this is very common. You just have to choose the stats that you want to go with.
Right. Yeah. And so again, another example of us providing new ways of experiencing.
Oh man,
already.
I think the queers
So
are
now, let's go from
loving,
that to then the background.
loving this new information because it's less math,
Are
more
really
freedom,
exciting
more
because
choice,
of how
more
we
tieflings.
essentially deconstructed them into their component parts.
We love it.
Examined each part and then reassembled them. And so the first thing that people are going to see is that the default option now for your background is to build your own. In the 2014 Player's Handbook, we had a bunch of backgrounds you could choose from. And then we had a rule that said if you want to customize a background, here's how you do it.
Mm-hmm.
We've essentially kind of reversed
I didn't even know that they had that.
priority order. We're now
Didn't know that you could customize your own background. I mean, I technically did,
and we tell you exactly
but I just
how,
ignored it most of the time.
or choose one
Is
of
this
the
just
sample
taking the most
backgrounds that
popular
we
homebrews and
provide
adding it to the
that
base
were
game?
built
No.
using the rules
It's
that
definitely
you
rewriting the current content
so,
in a way
what
that
those rules
fits how
include
people
are
play it
some
nowadays.
choices for your
It's like a
character
new
that
philosophy, a new
very
direction.
meaningful for you, not only in terms of your character's story, but also
But it's still the same game, if that makes sense. Like, they're not changing.
First off,
It's not becoming a 6th edition. It's still
one of
5th
the choices in
edition.
background is
It's still 5th
you want to
edition.
put a
The
full
balance isn't going to
plus
change. You
two
can still
and
use the
plus
same
one
stat
to
blocks.
your ability.
There's just like
People are
clarifications
already
to make
familiar
things
with
make more
trying
sense
do,
and to be
with
easier
pocket
to
tokens and
understand.
everything, as well as some of our other recent books like Monsters of the Multiverse that
It is a
allow you
weird
to have a
choice
plus
to
two and
do,
plus one that you decide
but
you can
I
go in your
understand
characters.
why.
So this
Because,
is
like, if they released a
familiar,
6th
but what's
edition, that would be
different
like,
is
oh,
now that
but
we
everyone's
have
been
those
using
into the
5th edition for so many years. We'll never move to 6th edition. But so I understand why they're doing it this way. Could because D&D is so successful right now.
You've been doing this. This is
But
your
it is a
background.
weird-
This is like the life that you have led. This is why
Exactly.
you are more dexterous. This
It's
is
very
why
interesting.
you-
I'm really excited.
You lifted greatsword, like
Yes.
you were a soldier. You know, this kind of equates.
Exactly, because background is all about what have you.
Are the
been
new
doing
Nooks going to be like $60
for all
again?
the years
Probably.
before you became an
Or
adventurer.
more.
It
Because
has
Monsters
to
of the
be
Multiverse, that
meaningful of
collection
your
was a lot of money.
character's stats. And
Now,
if you choose one of the
it's still
pre-made
Wizards of the
people
Coast.
will
They still
see
make Magic,
we have chosen
Magic
what
the
the
Gathering. They're
resource
still
bonuses are, connected
capitalism,
to the story of the
but-
background. But if you use the default,
They haven't
option,
released a
build
price.
your
And again,
own
they're not
just
releasing...
as you can in
The
Monsters
timeline
Multiverse.
isn't until
Put
2024.
that plus two and that
So,
plus one,
many
or
years. So we're
three
just
plus
getting
ones
insights.
wherever you want.
So this is going to be a weird
But
kind of 2
the
years
reason
where
why we're
people
doing it
can
for both
choose to
is
play
you
like a
build your own, you decide
half-built
where to
version
go,
of the game.
Or if you choose a pre-made background, we decide where they're
40% off on Amazon,
I
okay.
know there are many players who don't want to have
That'd
to
be good.
decide. And so if you just like,
That would be good.
Soldier tells me
Yeah.
to increase these two stats in this way, and then they're good to go. It's sort of the best of both
Well,
worlds.
and it illustrates the point very well.
Yes. And that
I think they're talking about the ability
backgrounds,
scores
that
on
we
backgrounds
provide
now,
are
which is
really
so
just
good.
illustrations of
Makes so
how
much more
people
sense.
Can use the new background building.
$20 on 100.
So
$20
ability
on
scores.
140 dice.
Just as you do now, you in
That's really good.
handbook,
Oh my
you
god.
get, two skill proficiencies.
Dude, that's
You
sick.
get a tool proficiency.
Again, I
you get
applaud you.
language, you
Well
also
done.
get a starting package of equipment, and even in our deconstruction and rebuilding process, even all those equipment packages have been examined because we're embracing this build-your-own approach. One of the things we needed to do was make it so that all the backgrounds have equipment packages of the same value.
Yeah.
Because in the 2014 Player's Handbook, they didn't. And
Right.
so now, if people
Oh,
like add up,
didn't know that.
the cost, they'll see. Oh,
I
all the
literally
backgrounds
do not care
have
about equipment when I
equipment
play.
packages worth exactly
So-
50 gold pieces.
Nice that they are
Doing
considering it.
criminal.
They're doing a good job of considering
Right,
all
right.
types of play,
And,
both role play and
One of the main
wargame.
reasons why we've done that
So
is
looking at
to
equipment for
empower
dungeon
this
crawls,
build
and then
your
looking
own.
at
So
they were
then
talking about having
other thing
different
you get in your background,
different kinds of
touched on
parents
it
for
earlier
role
in the
play.
talk, and it is, in my mind, the most exciting new piece of background, and that is you also get a first level feat. So in that statement, there are a few things for me to unpack. First off, I just talked about a feat and gave it a level. That's critical, because people are going to see not only in this Unearthed Arcana, but in the upcoming...
Not in this
Unearthed
Unearthed
Arcanas,
Arcana. There's nothing with
Tier Plus.
with prerequisites,
They're
which
gonna
is
see
weird.
feats
Would you
appear
recommend teaching a bunch of
every
high schools?
single level.
How would you recommend teaching a bunch of high
The way
schools
to think of
D&D?
a feat is
The way I've
it's
taught
essentially-
other people D&D in the past is you give them a context. So, okay. I introduced some uni friends into D&D they'd never played before. The kind of like the one shot that I ran for them was a super loose, like, you are in a fantasy world and someone has asked you to find their lost dog. And you have agreed to this and you're going to go find it. You put them in a scenario that they can't refuse because they don't know how to play the game yet, so they don't know how to say yes to a plot hook. So put them in a scenario, tell them, you are going to do this. And then it's up to them to work out why. And then in terms of mechanics, keep it real simple to begin with. What do you want to do? Okay, you want to do that? Roll a d20. And then they'll roll a d20. And from there, like, you keep track of all, like, the fancy, like, words. If they ask, like, what something is, then sure, of course, like, tell them. But I would start off, like, really, really simple. You are doing this, and if you want to try something, always roll a d20. Because that, at the end of the day, is what D&D is, right? You roll a d20 and see if it works. And when you make an attack roll, you roll a d20 and see if it works. And then there's some other stuff to work out how well you do. You roll some damage then. But you roll a d20 to see if it works first. If you want to steal the Declaration of Independence, you have to roll a d20 at some point in time. So that's where it'd start. And then session 2 is where you go like, okay, well, that means this. And the thing with spells is I was just like, don't worry about spells. You can do anything you want. That's up to you. I let them make characters because I was like, okay, it's a fantasy. It depends on the world, right? Like if you're doing Ravnica, I might make characters for them, or you might want to make characters for them because it's a existing world. The context that I was in, I was just more like, this is a very loose, hand-wavy. You can play a turtle man if you'd like, and you can play an elf. And what do you want to be? Oh, you want to be like a satyr or something? Sure, go for it. You're a big, giant hag-looking satyr. Winner. But since Ravnica is a bit more like guild-oriented or this sort of thing, yeah, I'd probably give them a couple stat sheets, but make it like real simple. Yeah, maybe you don't even need to like give them ability scores. Just make them up on the spot, or say everyone has his 10 or something. I don't know. Simplify it as much as you're willing to, is what I'd say.
A class feature that doesn't belong to a single class. And just as class features have levels, feats are now going to have levels.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so there are several reasons for this. One, because we're really embracing feats in certain parts of this playtest process, backgrounds being one of the main parts of the game where we're doing that, we want to make sure that feat selection is not overwhelming. And one way for us to make it so that it's not overwhelming is to break feats up into smaller groups. And one of those ways that we're doing that is with levels. So for instance, if something in the game
that makes
tells you to
sense.
go pick a first level feat, then you know immediately, well, then I can ignore all the feats in this book that are for 4th level, that are for 20th level, or any other level that might be on the feats. Instead, you can just focus in.
I like that. I like that.
Level
I
one.
like that
Just love
philosophy.
those universal
It is going to make other things more irritating, especially when you build a character off of a
very
feat.
used power
That's
that
something
is,
that I do often.
like, more in tune with your leveling up.
It's more
Like,
irritating,
allows you not to, like,
but
picking from the same
I understand
feats
for a new
that are
player,
always done.
less challenging.
You know, you can get a feat that is much more strong.
Yeah. Well, not only that, but also something people are going to see is that when you examine the first level feats in this Unearthed Arcana, if you're familiar with the feats that have been in the game in the last 8 years, some of them have, in addition to including some sort of special benefit, have often also included a +1 to one of your ability scores.
Right.
You'll notice reading this document, none of these feats have a +1
I
to
remember,
ability
yeah,
score.
I didn't
And
take
that's
note of that.
intentional because that is actually one of the signs that you're looking at a first level feat. Because when you see some of the higher level feats in our upcoming Unearthed Arcanas, some of those feats will still have a +1 to a particular ability score. But again, one of the
That's
signs
interesting.
of a first level feat is
I'm
that you
glad I
include that.
watched this.
And because first level feats are not meant to change your ability score, because when you're building your character, there are already other things that are manipulating your ability scores.
Right, those initial factors. Whereas when you move forward and you start hitting other levels, you are faced with the, do I increase my ability stats or do I go with a feat?
Right.
And this kind of softens that as well of like, well, you're still getting a benefit.
Feet, haha, he
Well,
said
you're not only
feet.
getting a benefit, but it's a benefit your character didn't have before.
Spells should be
This
ordered
is-
by level,
this
then
is a
alphabetically.
pure
Why aren't
argument
they?
that
Great question. Great question. They're ordered by level, at least. No, they're ordered alphabetically in the place of handbook, aren't they? Yeah. Great question. There is a page in the player's handbook of like the spell lists. Because I feel bad whenever someone wants to be a wizard, I just have to flip through the entire book for a single spell. What I would do, I'll show you this side. So either D&D Beyond, of course. I use this website. This website because you can go spells, wizard spells. And it's a slow website, but it's like, okay, there's all the wizard cantrips, there's all the first level spells. I like this UI better than D&D Beyond because you can see more of them at a glance. But D&D Beyond has a better way of previewing the spells. So for this, you have to like open up another window and it's really, really slow. Whereas D&D Beyond, you get a preview of what the spell does if you click on it. So utilize technology. And that's an example of what I'm saying when like the player's handbook is notoriously not laid out amazingly. You get everything for free on there. More or less everything, yeah. It's not like every expansion. I don't think it has like... It doesn't have everything from like Monsters of the Multiverse. And this isn't official. And I don't know how legal it is for them to be doing this. Because they're handing out like Fizzbon's content for free. And what are they called? Critical Role content for free, and Ravnica, and lots of stuff. There's lots of stuff on here. Very good site. Lots of Unearthed Arcana. And archived Unearthed Arcana that don't exist anymore. It's much harder to find. Like the Mystic class, which I've never looked at. I have looked at. I've never understood because it's weird. Yeah. Great website. Very slow. Not the best UI. But it has everything.
we're providing now for everybody. And we have that in mind as we decide what qualifies as a first level feat and what doesn't. Basically, anything that's going to dramatically increase character power in some way, people are not going to see as a first level feat. That is the domain of higher level feats, where the game's math can handle adjustments to raw power. Most first level feats are about increasing a character's versatility and speaking to different key backstories. And you'll see that these feats are, they all are featured in at least one of the sample backgrounds in this document. So you can also see, looking at the sample backgrounds, how to match first level feats with background if you decide to build your own background. And again, if you don't want to, you just grab one of these pre-made backgrounds and the background just feeds you a particular feat. For instance, if you pick the Sailor, you're going to get Tavern Brawler. And the reason for that is because in the little story that we provide for the Sailor, it's because on your long journeys, you have spent a whole lot of time in taverns, in different ports of call,
Yeah.
and in the process, you've gotten really good at participating in brawls.
Whereas like criminal, you get alert, I believe.
Yes.
Because that makes sense.
Yes, because you want to be very alert.
You gotta look out for the soldiers of the crown or whatever.
Exactly. And people are going to see that alert, which is a returning feat, has new functionality. And I'm super excited.
Again, it's new, but it's not
this whole approach that
revolutionized. It's just
it's all about
rewritten to
your character
be
story,
better overall.
making certain
Again,
meaningful
can still
game
use 5th edition,
that
but
reflect the story you have in mind for
more
your
options.
and each of the sample backgrounds that we provide are really
It actually might be
there
worth looking at
to
this
show you
document
kinds of
bagged
stories that you
if
have
you're
in
introducing
there.
new players,
So
because
that's
it
why
might just
we're
give
gonna
you
see,
some
again,
interesting
some returning
terminology
backgrounds,
in
like
your brain.
soldier,
It's
like
on D&D
sailor,
Beyond for free, so
acolyte, but you're also going to see brand new ones like cultist, pilgrim, and a number of others, all meant to show a
wait, there was a
different
cultist?
aspect of
I need to finish this, but there was a cultist? I didn't see a cultist. Dragonborn? Where are the backgrounds? I hate that there's no color on this. If there was color, that'd be nice. Build your backgrounds. Acolyte? Artisan. Cultist. Oh! Well, that makes sense. That cultist.
of a character's life that could have been formative in who they are.
Yeah, and it's such a good. It helps for a point of inspiration how you roleplay your character as well.
Yeah.
And add like the meaningfulness of the backgrounds. Like backgrounds were always cool before, but now it's like, okay, this has
They weren't cool before.
a
He's
lot of-
being very
It
nice.
has a lot of
He's talking to the fucking game designer. Of course he's going to
also
say that they were good
where we
before as
can,
well.
express
They were shit
character's
before.
culture,
They gave
your
you
character's
skill
some
proficiencies and some
of those
money.
elements that used to exist in
That's kind of all that they did that was
certain
important.
races, those elements now exist
Maybe a
in
language.
background. That migration of sort of cultural
Backgrounds are an essential part of character building now, and it will be where I spend most of my time.
a philosophy that
There's
informs
less flexibility with what you can do with a race, because you just pick a race and you go like, cool, I'm this. Okay, how do I craft this story now? And that's through the ability scores and the background and the
Mountain
feat.
Dwarf and Hill Dwarf as sub-options anymore. And there's a reason for that. It's because those options were only cultural for dwarves. In our D&D worlds, those are really cultural designations that different dwarf communities have taken on. And also in some D&D worlds, those names don't appear at all.
Right. Yeah.
And unlike, say, elves, who actually have different mystical abilities based on their connections with different environments, whether it's wood elves who have particular magical abilities because of their connection to primeval forests, or drow who have, their magical abilities because of the millennia they've spent in the magic-saturated Underdark. Dwarves don't have those associations. And so instead of having a choice, which was, again, cultural, and culture now is reflected by background, we focused in on, let's make the dwarfiest dwarf. And so in a few cases where maybe before there's an option that's not there anymore, really often the option is just moved someplace else. And so any of the cultural cues that a person before was searching for in, say, their dwarf character, they can now replicate those, and often with more oomph in the background system. For instance,
Yeah.
if you want
And that
to
more
lean
oomph
into,
is the thing that I think
fairy
people will be
tale
like,
dwarf who
well,
not
creep,
only has
everyone's going to be
purpose,
too
but
strong now. And
also is
maybe.
a minor and this sort of thing.
But who cares? It's more fun.
Pick the laborer
Your
background,
god's at level 10 anyway.
You're going to get all the stuff you would expect.
It's a lot. Your
for
god's are like level
a character who's
15,
really
16,
leaning
17.
into that
But
archetype.
This all connects to Monsters of the Multiverse as well.
you're unreasonably strong
So,
for a
Everything
character
you're seeing here
at like level
is
5.
designed to play
So.
side by side with books
Oh yeah,
around
you could
the
kill a
world,
level
and
20
that
party.
includes recent books like Monsters of the Multiverse.
Oh yeah, like as a DM, yeah.
Dwarf
But we have like
that
infinite
Arcana
resources.
is meant to
Like,
exist in the game side by
it is
side.
unfair
Rare
because
card
like,
that appears
what you
in
throw
the
like
Multiverse.
fucking
Elf in this
a million
game
demi
is trying
liches.
to stand side by side with
Infinite.
the Sea Elf
Oh,
and
wow.
Shatter Kai, who are
Yes.
in Monsters of the Multiverse.
But like
So
compared
gnomes
to a
where
commoner
we have the player's
who
hand
has like
gnome that
10
we have
HP,
here, and then we have
at
the
level
additional
2
gnomes
you're
that
already
are
like
each
twice
gnomes
as better
in
as them.
Monsters
So
of the Multiverse. So
it can be weird sometimes to compare
version of
humans
something.
in the fantasy
And
worlds
that
of
is the most
D&D.
sort of like archetypal,
Right.
universal version, the most common version that you're going to see. All of those other versions that we have, particularly in a book like Monsters of the Multiverse, which we designed to be a big collection of options that would then be able to stand shoulder to shoulder with the options in the new core rulebooks, you then, when you put them all together, have this amazing family of options. And these new options don't
How to make
take
NPC
away
fights?
those, but
Yeah,
instead, in many ways, create
that can be
something
hard.
when you look at one and look
I
at the other.
was it Tasha's that has sidekicks? Sidekicks. They essentially have a player level progression. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about. Player level progression, but for a DM. One of the NPCs in the campaign that I'm running is a sidekick. And it feels good because it levels up with the players. But there is also just lots of stuff in the monster manual that is like strong people. You can really use any stat block. Yeah,
Really
it's hard.
highlights even more what's special
I don't have an
about
answer here. I don't know why I paused the
This
video for that.
material is meant to work, and the future product, the future player's handbook, very nicely with the books that already exist.
Exactly. Now, there's a lot we could say about the feats that you're getting from those backgrounds.
Correct.
And I'm really excited for people to read through all of them, to
They're good
see
feats.
what's
They're
going
fun.
on in these feats, rather than going through each one of them, as much as I would love to, because there's so many cool...
There's a lot to look at.
There's so many fun things in these new feats. Really what I'd love to do is talk briefly about some of the philosophy behind the decision-making here. I've already talked a bit about...
That's what I want to
some of the
hear
things
because
that
I do a lot of
distinguish
homebrew,
these
so I
feats
should
from
have the
higher
same
level
philosophy. And I
There's
haven't
another
had that
thing,
opportunity
that
yet.
informed some of the decisions we made about the feats here. And that is, first I'll talk about feats we revised, and then I'll also talk about brand new feats. So whenever we were revising a feat that already existed in the 2014 Player's Handbook and made the determination that it was going to become a first level feat, we not only wanted to make sure it was delivering something with very clear functionality and clear value, we also wanted to make sure that the feat is useful to the people who most archetypally would want to take it. Here's what I mean by that. If you look at the healer feat in the 2014 Player's Handbook, you read the title and you think, hey, I'm playing a life cleric, I'm a healer.
Right.
That's probably a feat I want to take. But then if you read it,
Not very beneficial.
no, because that feat was actually written for a person who maybe doesn't have any healing ability.
Right.
So we have kind of turned that on its head.
I wonder if a Banshee
And
has
we
killed
have
an
now
entire
made it
party
so
with
that
just
this
one
feat is
whale.
beneficial
Probably, yeah.
to people who are already healers.
Yeah, probably.
Also
I almost killed an entire
providing
party with a
healing
Bahir once
ability
because I
to
didn't know
someone
how
who
to.
lacks it. So
I didn't know what a
that's the
challenge
kind of
rating was,
needle
and
we're
so I
threading in
gave
lot
a
of these, that maybe a feat
a
that
group of
people
level 3s. The
seem
level
to
the
be pulling
challenge
for a particular
rating
type of character,
13
but they didn't
Bahir
connect with that character at all.
did
We
not
now
go
make
well.
so that it's
Insta
really
killed 2
beneficial for
people.
that kind of character.
It was very bad.
Many life clerics are now going to want
I
to take
learned a lot that day.
but then also many non-spellcasting characters.
Kobold Fighting Club is my
drawn
bestie.
to the healer feat because of their character's backstory, because of the battle medic ability
Right.
that is now in the healer feat that allows you to actually heal somebody using a healer's kit. And you'll see that again and again in these feats.
That's a weird phrase that they have to include. You can actually heal someone with a healer's kit. That should just be what a healer's kit does.
Or
It is weird to me that the feat requires a healer's kit.
in the alert
And the healer's kit is not just like an artisan's tool.
first level feat that again the criminal
Anyway.
has. Not only do you get a bonus to your initiative roll, but you also now have an ability when initiative is rolled, you and another member of your party can swap initiative.
Which is amazing. I love
So
that.
fun.
And that ability alone is going to make many groups like, oh, we are so happy.
Yo!
Because we have
Thank you for
all
the follow.
indeed been in that
That's really
situation,
kind.
like, if only this particular
Thanks,
character
man.
was able to go earlier.
Exactly, yeah.
And so now the character who is, because this alert feed is designed to mean this is the person who is exceptionally ready to jump into action and can help one of their buddies do so.
And that's another example of like alert was a very like for my character only feat.
Right.
like I just want to be first.
Right.
Now you have the option to like pass that on to someone else in your group and be a good party member
Exactly.
if given the option. But yeah, like that's that's lovely. That's that dual purpose for all these feats.
Yeah, and
That's
then the brand new feats are designed to
Just thinking,
fill
maybe
some
maybe I should try and make a
gaps
character
that
using these
existed
new
before.
systems.
Gaps that really came to mind for us as
It's kind of hard without a class, though, so
What's an example of one of the new feats?
I'll have to be
So
patient.
musician
Right. Oh, there you go.
it is one of the new feats, and with the musician feat, you can not only gain proficiency with 3 musical
This is
instruments of
interesting.
choice, and sort of getting 3 tool proficiencies used to be a function, one of the optional functions of the skilled feat, but now you get a more flavorful version of that, not only in the musician feat but also elsewhere. So you get to
Crafter
choose 3
is
musical
the one that's
instruments
called.
that you're proficient with, but then you also have the ability that whenever you finish a short or long rest, you can give inspiration to a number of people who hear you play a song on one of your instruments, and the number of people who can gain inspiration is affected by your proficiency bonus. So, in other words, the higher level you
Insanely
get,
good.
It scales
the
rather
more-
nicely. Yeah.
and-
They're
and
actually
so,
giving proficiency,
in any
inspiration
group, we're like, gosh,
in
we really
mechanics,
have
and it's not just the
inspiration
thing that
pocket ready
DMs
to
forget,
go. And for
which is
anyone
what I
who
did
doesn't know what inspiration is, 'cause a lot
for
of people
years.
don't
Forgot
use
to
it,
give inspiration.
essentially having
Now,
the advantage in your
with
pocket,
feats,
ready to use
with the
when you use
human,
it.
Right.
and
So,
with critical
just like the
hits. If
musician
you
feat,
roll a
using
20,
this
you get
inspiring
inspiration.
song can give people inspiration.
Mechanically written.
So this brand new feat is not only filling a
So
gap
good.
in our previous feat list, but it's also doing exactly what I was talking about earlier about the healer feat, and that is, it will be useful to also someone who's already a musician, most notably the bard.
The bar. Yeah.
Because this ability to, whenever you finish a rest, to give certain number of people of inspiration, is not an ability the bard has. So this combines really nicely with
But
a hit.
it does
become a
mesh
party
with an
bard,
ability that
or
they do
you
have,
play
which
a fighter
is
who
the
also
thing,
takes out loot.
Yeah, who before battle plays
Song
this
of
beautiful
Rest, where
song,
if they play a
and
song
it's
during a
like,
short rest,
now
they
I'm
can
ready to
heal
go.
more.
Yeah.
They add on to that, now you get
and
inspiration.
again, that is the philosophy.
And that's really, 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 really
How
good.
can we make people who, again, want a taste of something they don't have happy,
Pardon me if you
but
heard
also
that.
make the people who already have the thing also happy. Magic Initiate does this too. Magic Initiate,
They're gonna talk about Magic Initiate.
published in the past year or two, now tells you, hey, not only do you get some spells that you can cast for free, but if you already have spell slots, you can use them to cast these spells too.
Yeah, we literally don't care about that bit.
Of, like, Tasha's and other books.
Don't care about that bit. We care about you're getting rid of
You
spell
very
lists.
key-
Talk about
key
that.
to The fact that, like, yeah, I got this first level spell, but like I can't upcast it with Magic Initiate.
Right.
So it's a little like frustrating if that spell can scale up if you like use a higher spell slot.
And now you can do that.
Yeah, if you want to hellish rebuke.
Come on,
someone,
talk about
which
it.
I love doing.
Talk about it.
You can do so now.
The feat also has been given broader functionality because people are going to see in this feat a reference to something that is new.
Yeah, let's talk about that. Let's figure out. I assume you're talking about spells and how they're defined.
Yes. So not only does the Magic Initiate feat refer to what we're about to talk about, but there are references to it elsewhere in the doc, one of those being in the High Elf, and that is, we now refer to 3 new spell lists. There is an Arcane spell list, a Divine spell list, and a Primal spell list.
Let's go!
In our work over the last few years, as we've been preparing to start unveiling this material, we realized that as the game expands, as there are new subclass options, also with the introduction
Really,
of class like
I'm building a
Artificer,
class at the moment, and it's really hard to
with
pick
feats,
a
with
spell
magic
list.
items, with a variety of things that give you access to spells. There has been a growing need for us to have a new type of spell list, and that is a spell list that isn't tied to a particular class, but is instead tied to really the source of your magic.
Right.
And so in this case, arcane spells are all about manipulating the background magic that's in the entire multiverse. Divine spells, as people would expect, come from either gods or the realms of the gods. And then primal spells are about drawing on the magic that is in not only sort of the elements, but also in the spirits of nature. And the way we sort of divide it is, divine is really magic pulling from the outer planes, primal is pulling from the inner planes, and arcane is pulling from sort of the multiverse writ large. And so now, rather than us directing you for certain
I
spell
love
choices
that
in
so
particular
much.
contexts, like the previous
So
Magic
good.
Initiate, was like, all right,
It's
go
so,
pick
like,
from the spell list of one of these particular classes.
clean a way of
Which
describing it.
Then suddenly, the moment we introduce a new class like Artificer,
Right.
then we need a whole new feat for that.
Yeah.
This feat now.
Does this mean we're going to get more
is
classes?
The future of the game, because now,
Because
anytime
when we
you
introduce a new
use
class
spell,
like
the
Artificer,
spell itself will
they have plans
a
to introduce new
tag
classes,
that tells you
right?
if it's arcane, divine, or primal, or a mix. Because some spells, as people are going to see in some of our upcoming Unearthed Arcana, fall into multiple categories. This is going to have a tremendous payoff, not only for like, oh, this later supplement added a new arcane spell. I have access to the arcane spell list. I can now have access to that spell without it having to route through a particular class.
A much more elegant solution.
Elegant, that's the word I was
And
looking for.
it
Thanks, Todd.
also is another, it has another purpose for us.
Love you,
It's a way
Todd.
for us to take this notion of these sources of magic, which are mentioned, at least arcane and divine are, in the 2014 Player's Handbook, but now we actually sort of give them rules teeth, rather than just sort of being a story wrapper, because arcane and divine, and then occasionally primal when it has been mentioned, have really just been a flavor wrapper. Now they actually have substance in the game itself, that there is a list that you can go look at and go, here are
I
these
can like, the
universal
class that
arcane
I'm
spells.
building
Here
is
are
this
the
weird mix of
universal
arcane and
spells,
divine.
and so on.
And now I
People
can,
have to
like,
wait for upcoming
thematically
to see how
refine it
classes
by looking
use
at
those
arcane
lists,
spell list
because
versus divine
classes
spell list,
are gonna
which
be
is
fluid.
better
Classes
for
are
this
also going to
class.
have access
And
to
that's
spells that go beyond
for a
those
home brewer,
universal
for me,
lists.
building
Again,
new
that's
tools
sort
for
of future
D&D
us to talk about.
as like a
But again,
oh,
I think
D&D
already
is
this
a
more
toolbox.
exciting
I'm making a
being able
house,
to reveal,
or I'm trying to make a
new
new
types
pair of
of
scissors or something.
spells that
This is stupid.
provide, tremendous
I
amount
love
of
this.
flexibility for characters, not only that will be able to be made with this series of Unearthed Arcana articles, but also that will be able to be made in the future.
Yeah, it is a very exciting time. This is a very weighty UA. We're going to be doing this often this year. Somewhat semi-monthly, but yeah, not necessarily strictly defined.
Yeah.
In terms of timing, but we have a lot of UAs coming out this year. We need a lot of player feedback. So.
And there is so much in this UA that we could talk about.
Yes,
And
I know. We could have gone through everything, and we could have made this a 3-hour video.
And there are, before we sign off on this video,
Yeah.
there are a couple other gems in this UA I would love to
Go
highlight.
ahead. Yeah, I'm eager to hear.
So first, I encourage people in the rules glossary to look at
Talk about D20
not only
tests.
the revised definitions of a couple of our conditions, they're also going to see there's a new condition that's in play, the slowed condition.
Slowed,
And
yep.
people are going to see in the upcoming Unearthed Arcanas updates to a number of the game's conditions. So I'm excited to see what people think about that.
Very excited for that.
Also,
Because part of the class that I'm working on is fucking with conditions. Very
Very
minor part, but it's there.
Decided that rather than inspiration being connected to essentially just the DM awarding people for particular character choices, instead, inspiration is going to be something you can reliably get whenever you roll a 20 on an ability check, saving throw, or attack.
So good.
We wanted a way to feed people inspiration through the system itself. And we love this idea of when you have a spectacular success, you're inspired by it. You're bolstered by it, and that can start creating this sort of snowball effect.
Yeah.
And that's what we're going for. We've also tweaked the rule on inspiration.
I do like that he
It's
said
still the
that,
same
so anyone
way
who's
that we
like,
have
oh,
one
you
system
create a
of
snowball. He's like, no, that's why we did it.
stockpile inspiration. So you either have it or you don't. But we've now made it so that if something in the game gives you inspiration,
This was very interesting.
you already have it, you can then immediately give it to one of the other characters in your group.
He's giving it to me?
And it's likely that people are going to have
Thanks,
it because you get it by
Crawford.
rolling a 20. And one of the new traits of humans...
He gave inspiration to me, guys. He gave it to
When they
me.
finish a long rest, have inspiration. So every human in your group is going to start every adventuring day with inspiration. And that means then if the human gets inspiration and already has it, they can then give inspiration to somebody else. I think there's going to be a really fun sort of, inspiration flowing around in the party. And what people are going to see as they actually experience this in play, what the system is intentionally doing is encouraging you to use the inspiration. Because there's more is coming.
Instead of just like greedily, like, I don't know when I'm going to need this.
Exactly, and it's we often, when we're assessing different parts of the system, if we see something that ends up getting hoarded so much that it actually almost never sees use, that to us tells we need to change something so that this actually becomes a fun part of play and not something that just gets marked on your character sheet and then you forget about it.
Is this the moment that I use?
And as a DM, forget to give. Because nobody uses it. And so when I do give it, it's used like once and then it's forgotten about. And
whereas we want to make it easy for people to say yes.
Yeah.
To say yes.
So now it's
my inspiration.
like,
because
I'm sure people have ruled it in the past where they're like, yep,
The getting a natural 20 thing.
20s get
so
inspiration.
it's like you
This
said,
is just like,
dramatic moment or a
like,
great narrative moment of like I
spreading it to the
very
mass,
successful,
go
now
like,
I have a
we
roll
are allowing you to
forward,
do this,
and
we
then
are
going
building
to
it
roll
with this in
another 20,
mind.
and going and
It is
going
now
and
an
going,
opportunity for you
and
to like
see a game
do
where,
this.
something
Like
that-
actually saying it
I mean,
by
odds
the
are-
people,
are
by wizards,
not high,
by
but
D&D,
they're higher now.
doesn't
It's like
mean
Black is
that,
amazing at the table.
um,
That's very fun. The critical hits have changed as well. Can you
like,
elaborate on
okay,
that?
homebrew content, still very good, but it'll always be trumped by actual Wizards content because they designed with this in mind. This wasn't designed with the system in mind. Homebrew is trying to fit, but it's not built from the ground up with that in mind. So, like, crit roll content is a bit in the middle, where it's like, they've basically got the designers of D&D working on it, so it's essentially, like, official content, except for, like, fucking Blood Hunter. But
that was already the case in actual play.
Inspiration now is like, no, it is here. There was options you could do down here as the homebrew, but now it is here. Give it when you get crits.
Was
Yeah.
a more sort of rare occurrence than weapons scoring them. But we're exploring this option, and again, I really want to emphasize, this is a great example of a playtest giving us the chance to experiment with something.
Remember, this is not set in stone.
Right,
This
right.
is playtest.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That being said, it's been probably tested internally quite a bit, so they're confident with it. This isn't just like, throw it on the wall, see what happens. This is...
a clearer space.
They've been working on it for years.
Essentially, spell operations on one side and weapon and unarmed strike operations on the other. And the critical hit was already confusing for a number of people, because I've actually lost count over the last 8 years the number of times I've been asked by the community, can spells score a critical hit? So funnily, this experiment in this UA will function for many groups the way they were already playing, because many groups had doubt that spells could actually critical, even though they could.
Right.
And so now we're experimenting with, well, just what if they can't? And this is a function of weapon use and unarmed strike use, which then also allows for us to do greater clarity, because then there's not that fuzziness before of like, take the dice that were involved in the attack and roll them twice. No, now we zoom way in. It's take the weapon or the unarmed strikes dice and roll them a second time. Now, of course, people know that some people don't have dice for their unarmed strikes, but monks and others absolutely do, and we wanted to make sure this critical hit option was available for them, in addition to characters who rely more on weapons. Now, there's an additional nuance here. The way we have worded this experimental rule, it is only player characters who score critical hits. Now, I need to unpack that.
Well, it's kind.
So first,
I understand why. I understand the thought behind all of this. But critical hit is like Dungeons and Dragons thing. It's like the simplicity of Fate and exploding dice and some other systems. It is the thing that makes you want to play the game, because when you score a 20, you do big hit. That's kind of like the point of D&D from my perspective, and it's why it's like one of the calling cards from the system of why it's interesting. I can understand if they're trying to shift that to when you score a critical hit, you get inspiration. And that's the thing. That's the new like critical hit. That's the new bonus. And so shifting a critical hit to like, yo! Thank you, Spaghetti. That's very kind. You don't have to do that. Thank you so much. How are you going? Fun fact, there's new tieflings. Okay. As a DM, I don't like tools being only for players because it's not fun for me then. Yo, what's up, Trash? It's not fun for me as a DM to not have the same tools available to me as players. Feats alone, like, I want my NPC to have a feat. Why can't they have a feat? Because they're only for players. Well, that's cringe. New tieflings, they're called Ardlings, and they're for upper planes. So they fucked around. They've changed so much. They haven't changed. They've rewritten and reclarified. so tieflings, they've expanded to mechanically have Infernal Legacy, Chthonic Legacy, and Abyssal Legacy. And Infernal is your Hellish Rebuke and your Darkness, and Resistance to Fire, and also Firebolt. But also you could have a Poison Tiefling, or a Necrotic Tiefling. We'll have to talk about how Ardlings work in our world, because Ardlings are very interesting in that they're like... So, the way they're written is they're for the upper planes, so they're like Arborea and Mount Celestia and like Arcadia and stuff, Asgard, and so they get more divine than arcane, but they also have animal heads instead of horns. So where tieflings are a bit more demonic in nature, horns, tails, these guys have animal heads and can have spectral wings, which is very interesting. I'll info dump at you later, Spaghetti, because also humans, you get inspiration at a long rest. Critical hits, you just get inspiration, but they're also talking about critical hits being only for weapon attacks. There's a D20 test now, as opposed to, like, as an overarching term, dwarves get tremor sense. Like, these are all the clickbait headlines. It's actually really, really interesting. Backgrounds are interesting. Every single character gets a feat at level 1. And a human will get 2, because they're humans. But every single character, a background gives you a feat, and your background determines your ability score increase. Orcs, no longer half orcs. Orcs get Relentless Endurance and Adrenaline Rush, which is like dash as a bonus action. Tieflings are sick. They didn't really have any extra shit. They get 2 cantrips. They get Thaumaturgy plus another one. Backgrounds are nuts. Feats have actually these are backgrounds, which are good. Magic, I don't want a background. Backgrounds are good now. Backgrounds, primarily, so their focus is build your own background, and then the rest of it. So build your background. This is the focus, and then the rest of those are samples. And so what this is just describe your backstory, and take ability scores that relate to your backstory, take skill proficiencies that relate to your backstory, choose tool proficiencies that relate to your backstory, choose a language that relates to your backstory, and then choose a feat that relates to your backstory. It's very focused on, like, make the character, choose what you want, and here are some options if you don't want to think about it right now. That's... fucking awesome. Amazing. Really, really good. Really, 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 really good. And in this video, they were literally talking about, like, having different raced parents, having dwarf and halfling. Like, that's the things that Jeremy Corford said. So all the shit that we built our world around is now getting into core rules as written D&D. I'll finish this video, and I'll stop the stream and upload and blah blah blah.
Often play out in
I'm very interested in this.
unsatisfying.
There's nothing
or
about
terrifying
classes
ways,
yet,
and I'll unpack
but
it.
I'm
I'll
very,
unpack
very
it.
interested.
First, they can be terrifying. Higher level terrifying is fine. First level terrifying can mean the character's gone. So crits are extremely dangerous at low levels.
Lots of options. Doesn't have to be options, but there is
Critting
options.
your first level character might mean
I was saying earlier that I think the queers are going to love this because there's less math. Oh, spells. Spells are less complicated. You know how there's a cleric spell list and a wizard spell list and a bard spell list and all of that? Dead. Gone. Disappeared. There's only 3 spell lists now. Divine, Arcane, and Primal. And Primal's your druids and rangers. Oh, actually, I can show those real quick. They're easy to find. So, they don't have all the spell lists, but, like, that's the divine spells. That's the arcane spells. Very interesting. Don't know how that'll go balance-wise. We'll have to wait and see until we get the classes. We don't know what the classes look like yet.
That's it.
Your character is on their way to the grave.
Yeah.
Pardon me.
But then other times, because of how a monster's damage expression is built, a monster critical hit can feel unsatisfying. And the DM might say there was a crit, but the math doesn't really deliver the punch that you were expecting when the DM said that. Also, because a lot of DMs use static damage, our crit rule where you're rolling a die a second time, there's friction between that rule and how monsters are actually.
Not how I do it, because I'm
And there's a
cringe,
further
and
reason that we're
I break D&D. I hate that it's like roll an extra set of die, but you don't double the modifier that's added to it. I just double the whole thing flat, and I'm sure that'll piss a lot of people off, but it works really nicely for me because it's a much, much higher attack, and it's good. And it works for players and DMs. It's also really, really, really hard to kill players, because balancing an encounter sucks because these guys don't know what challenge rating is, which means how the fuck are we going to know what challenge rating is? So it's very... When do we get this? So obviously we technically have it now, but the book that it's going to be printed in currently scheduled for 2024. So another 2 years. But what they're saying is they will be releasing lots of these Unearthed Arcanas throughout this year and into next year to actually get feedback on them. So we're in 5.5 edition right now, and then technically 2024 is going to be 5 edition 2. Or 5th edition 2, because it's not 6th edition, it is 5th edition. They're calling it 1D&D because they're moving away from editions entirely. It's now just a system. It's like Fate, but...
With this, and that is, monsters actually already have their own built-in crit-like mechanic.
What?
And that is the recharge mechanic. We use recharge abilities to deliver those scary, massive strikes.
Right.
Think of the Dragon's Breath weapon. When that happens, everyone is put on notice, and that is the scary moment. The DM decides when to use it. So the DM can make an informed decision.
It's only 2 years, and also we have it right now, so we can still use it, and we can playtest it. It just might change slight wording over time. But it won't be in a book until 2024. But we can still use it. There's nothing stopping us from using it, which I will talk to you about.
The DM has no control over a critical hit. Now, uncertainty is also fun because we like DMs being surprised, but that's where the recharge roll comes in. But
what about low-level combat, where are you using most monsters don't have recharge?
They're not sure when they get the button back.
And also, most monsters that would have recharge are a single enemy. It is the dragon or the X. X, lots of players versus one big X, very boring, very easy combat. Most of the time. Unless it's a very, very big X. So, anything that is smaller doesn't have a recharge feature, but then you can have multiple of them. And so the recharge argument is not... I don't like this. I don't like crits being player only. I understand,
What we're exploring is this notion,
and they're exploring it, and they're obviously not as guaranteed about this.
In another form, and that is in recharge abilities.
But I don't like it.
The DM has a bit more control over, even though it's not total control, because again, once used, the DM doesn't know when it's coming back. That modicum of control is more in keeping with what we expect for a dungeon master.
Does he look like ScoMo? He does. I wonder if this has been done. It has not. Oh. He's one of the lead designers on D&D, so it's good to know that our silly little role-playing game is in good hands.
Surprisingly good hits that deal more damage than the weapon or unarmed strike would normally deal. This is a rule I am very keen to get feedback on, and hope people will try it out in their game, and then we'll see where we go next once we get the feedback on it. Related to rolling the D20, there's also another significant thing in the rules glossary.
D20 test?
I encourage people to take a look at. and that is we have decided to embrace how many groups actually play, and that
Maybe so.
is when you roll a 1 or a 20 for an ability check, saving throw, or attack roll,
Right.
a 1 is an automatic failure and a 20 is an automatic success. It will surprise some people watching that that's a change because
I know, because I've been doing it, I don't know, for like 10 years.
Yes.
At least.
because for anyone who might not know, previously a 20 meaning an automatic success and a 1 meaning an automatic failure was only a function of the attack roll,
Right.
not of ability checks and saving throws. But what we have seen over the last 8 years is more and more groups use the rule for
I
all
also
of
didn't know that.
tests. And we decided, rather than having the rules being
I think just like mechanically most of the time, a 1 almost guarantees a fail and a 20 almost guarantees a success. So it's weird to say
so much of what is in the
that it
Proficiency
actually
material
does.
is much of that.
So I think that's
Of
probably for
how
more
people
strict
actually play
tables where it's like,
or want to play.
well, you'll never get this. It's a DC of 40, and then you get a nat 20. And so it's like, oh no, that's an automatic success. It might be made for those tables.
We've been paying attention.
But
we watch streamed games. We constantly play D&D, and all of that feedback, all of that play, all of that observation has fed into what people are seeing in this Unearthed Arcana and what they're going to see in the months ahead.
There's two sides of the playtest material. Like, this is a moment in time where like all of everyone's feedback has led to this playtest material, and your feedback after this is going to lead to the final version. So be sure to playtest.
Absolutely.
Because this is not the final version.
Thanks, Todd.
Here
I love you,
is
Todd.
subject to change.
You're my favorite
this is
man.
Really, this UA in particular is our
One
hero.
of my favorite men.
Hello,
And-
we're listening.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
I liked you more when you were
the
bald.
feedback that then the community provides in response will help determine what parts of this make it into the new core books, what parts do we set to the side, and what parts do we keep but change. And so what everyone is going to see, just like with the D&D Next process almost 10 years ago, you're going to see an evolution in these playtest materials, in the game itself. Also, the exciting thing, I think, for everyone is you're going to be able to use all of these playtest docs with your existing core books. We have designed
That's
these
the main
docs
thing.
so that you can take each one, and other than the places where we tell you, all right, you know that thing in your book? Well, here's an update to it. Otherwise, all this material works with the core books you already have. Meaning,
And it works especially well with everything since Fizzbon's. No, since Tasha's. Which means there's a couple of books, like probably Strixhaven and Wild Beyond the Witchlight, Spelljammer. All of those are going to work really, really well with these rules, I reckon. Because they would have built those with this in mind.
We build this, it's almost like we're building a mosaic that in the end, once all the pieces are in place, you will get a glimpse of what the new core books are going to look like.
This has to be very exciting for you. Like, beyond the rules and the playtest, this is like a very exciting time to be a D&D fan.
Yeah.
And to be making D&D.
No, it's wonderfully exciting because we're able to take something that we love, feed the passion that we in the community have had for it over the last 8 years, feed all the conversations we've had internally that we've had with fans out in the world, and take all of that and let it flow into the game itself so that it can move now into its next generation.
Yeah.
Perfect.
I
am excited for...
It's hard. I sped it up, that's why.
Many more to come over the next few
There is no pretty pictures in this at all, and it's been
All right,
difficult,
and,
but we're almost
people
done.
will get access to this UA on dndbeyond.com.
Yes.
That is also where you get to playtest.
Is for free? How do you think about
that
it?
will be
True.
coming out
Gotta buy the
sometime
books for the pretty
after
colours.
This video.
There's no art of Ardlings.
So,
And I googled Ardlings, and there's like
later
12
today,
images on
you
Google.
should get
So
access.
I'm very interested to see what Ardlings end up being visually.
That's it, right? Okay, we're not going to be busy at all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
1D&D. What a bad name. Alright. So. Yeah, that's 1D&D. That's what's this? What's this called? Character Origins. Unearthed Arcana. I'll do a little one of these just to wrap up. Yeah, first. What's up, Frog? I might chat about this for a while. Oh no. Okay, I'll go get the water. I was about to end stream, but I'll go get the water. Yeah, I've just finished going through everything, so we can chat for a little while about it. And then I'll end and upload this to the YouTubes. Yeah, it's very, very interesting. I don't need this anymore. I really enjoy the direction that this is going. It's simplifying everything. It's clarifying wording. The Player's Handbook and Dungeons Master's Guide are notoriously not the most well written or the most easy to understand things. A perfect example is they updated the incapacitated condition to say when you become incapacitated, you lose concentration on concentration checks. You still don't understand D&D? That's okay. If you ever play a game, you ever play one session, it'll all make sense. And the only thing you need to know is if you want to do something, you roll a d20. Is this an ear reveal? I don't normally have my ears out on stream. You roll a d20, and 20 means good, and 1 means bad, and that's all D&D really is. Everything else is just options. And it's just a role-playing game, and it's fine. That's all D&D is. I love the backgrounds. Adding ability scores to backgrounds is really, really, really good. Really, really, really good. Forces you to actually use backgrounds, which is again, like something that Jeremy just spoke about then, is that if something is not being used, it should be changed. Inspiration and backgrounds were the two things in D&D that I used the least. That and tools. If they give tools and tool proficiencies the same upgrade and the same update that they have to backgrounds and inspiration, this game will be really, really good. Because there's not... Like, 5th edition is a really good system. It is complex and simple. It is relatively okay to pick up. It's quite difficult. You need, like, guidance on how to pick up the game. And it has a lot of depth for what you can do with it, both in, like, a dungeon crawling setting and a roleplay setting. But this just helps to, like, simplify it a little bit more, help that picking up the game, help it be a little bit more simple when it needs to be, but doesn't lose any of the complexity. And in fact, it actually increases complexity because of the feat prerequisites. It's no longer look at this big list of feats that you can pick from every 4 levels. You have to choose from all of these. Now, much smaller list, and you can exclude everything above you. So first level, everyone has to take one, but it's like 12 feats or something like that. It's not that much, and they aren't dramatic. They increase what you are able to do, which is what you kind of want from a background. And that's been my biggest complaint, is the backgrounds just kind of give a language and some proficiencies and then flavor text. These also, you can choose to add flavor text, and if you take from these sample backgrounds, they have flavor text, but like a little bit of flavor text there. But you get a feat, which is mechanically showing why you are good at something, which is good. Really, really good. I love it. I love it a lot. I'm gonna slurp, and then I'm gonna... If anyone has a question, we can chat, but... Oh! Oh. Okay. Okay. What's up? I'll do that into the mic next time so it's louder. Oh, okie dokie. I think we're done. I think I'll go a brief summary of everything. Let's do that. Let's do... Welcome to the highlight video. I'm going to upload the VOD, and now I'm going to upload the highlight. Yo, what's poppin', ND crew? So, Unearthed Arcana for this month, character origins, preview of all the new stuff, 1 D&D, future core rulebooks. the direction of D&D, new philosophies. What is the summary of everything? Well, if you want to hear my opinions of it, go to the VOD video. Humans, there's a lot of change of wording and sort of stuff, so it'll make sense later. I'm just going to read through basically as is. Humans, races in general, you basically only get a couple feats, or a couple features. And you can also generally dictate, like, choose whether you're small or medium, dictates your creature type, speed, lifespan. Typical stuff, what we've seen in Tasha's. Humans, get a skill proficiency, one of your choice. Versatile, you get a feat. That's very similar. There is slightly different wording, but it's similar to the variant human. You also gain, at the end of every long rest, you get inspiration. You know, that little checkbox that you can tick that gives you advantage on any roll that you want. You choose whether you have advantage. Every human gets that at the end of a long rest. Yo, that's actually true. Go check Spikosocus Brigade out at Twitter. Oh, I wonder if I can pull it up real quick. I have no idea how many people are on the stream right now. But this will be the fastest way to it. Because they drew my guy. Look at my guy. Go do this. Bada bing, bada boom. I'll leave this up here for a minute. But especially Frog. If Frog, you're still here, I would highly recommend other artists. At Frog's Workbench. Please respond. I wonder if there's a way. No, it's not really. Bam, boom, boom. You can't read shit. I will. Haha. Haha. You can't run away that easily. Just check that out. That's what I'll do. So humans, inspiration. At the end of every long rest. Their philosophy behind that is they're doing a lot of things to increase mechanically how you can gain inspiration, to make it something that you will be encouraged to use because you know more is coming. We'll touch on that later. New race. It is an Ardling. They're called the Ardlings. They are the upper planar version of Tieflings. So where Tieflings are demi-demons, these are demi-angels. They are humanoid, but they have an animal head, an animal face. No art of them, so they may be different, but that is their flavor text. As a bonus action, they get spectral wings and get temporary flight. But proficiency number of times per long rest, as is typical post-Tasha's. And it's, yeah, temporary flight. We've seen that in a couple things in the past. But very similar to Tieflings in that, and the newly written Tieflings as well. You get 3 different legacies, which kind of relate to a collection of upper planes. Basically the lawful, chaotic, and neutral. Lawful good planes, neutral good planes, and chaotic good planes. For the Ardlings, for Tieflings, it is the chaotic evil, neutral evil, and lawful evil. And you get different spells, divine spells, which again we'll come back to later. And you get resistance to radiant damage as like a blanket, which is very interesting. Dragonborn, pretty much as far as I can tell, same as what we saw in Fizzbans. You still get the damage resistance, you still have Draconic Ancestry. Breath Weapon is determined by your ancestry, what type of damage it is. They're all cones. Scales better, it's a proficiency number of times per long rest, that sort of thing, as we saw in Fizzbans with the Gem Dragon. Interesting note, races don't give languages anymore, but the Dragonborn does. The Dragonborn does give you Draconic, and that's the only race in this document that gives you a language. Dwarves. So interesting, because they're removing a lot of that cultural element from a race's features. That took away a lot of the the draw of a dwarf. You no longer have martial weapon proficiencies and that sort of thing. Dwarven resilience, you're still resistant to poison damage and you have advantage on poison conditions. Your dwarven toughness, you're still much tougher. Forge wise, you get proficiency with tools, which is given to you by your divine creators, like the gods that created the dwarves as a race. I think that touches a little bit too close to like a cultural thing, because it's kind of giving you the ability to use a device which would have been made by a culture, but you know, gives you tools. That's fine. Stone cunning, as a bonus action, you get tremor sense for 10 minutes. For 10 minutes. So it's kind of the first time I think any player has gotten tremor sense from a class, as far as I can remember. 60-foot range, very similar to a dark vision, but it's a temporary tremor sense. And I believe it's only through stone, which is, you know, flavoring them more like, yeah, resilient stone underground folk, I guess is the way to describe them. Elves, pretty as you would expect. Dark vision. You choose a lineage, which would be your at least described here, drow, high elf, wood elf. That gives you certain spells, and a different feature. Drows, more dark vision. High elves can change what cantrip they get at a long rest, and wood elves have a higher movement speed. Fey ancestry, advantage on charms, proficiency in perception, which is interesting, and as always, trance. Gnomes. Gnomes aren't that crazily different either. But again, following that sort of trend of kind of picking a sub-race, like a lineage. I don't think they're called lineages, not sub-races. Dark vision, gnome cunning. Interestingly, advantage on intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. I didn't go back and compare to the other gnomes, but I'm pretty sure it used to be just advantage against magical effects. So flattening that to any intelligence, wisdom, and charisma saving throws. I think that's interesting. Gnome lineage, you choose forest or rock at the moment, and they seem to do what they used to do. Forest gnomes, casting spells, rock gnomes, creating gadgets. But it's through the lens of you cast Prestidigitation for 10 minutes. And that's how you make your stuff. Interesting. Halflings. They actually bring up an interesting point. You still have Brave, advantage against Frightened, Halfling Nimbleness, move through spaces of any size, large, size. People that are bigger than you move through them. You also have Naturally Stealthy, which gives you proficiency in the stealth skill. Interesting. Luck. You still have Halfling Luck. When you roll a 1 on the d20 of a d20 test, you can re-roll the die and must use the new roll. D20 test is a new wording to describe. It's a blanket term for attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws. Because those are the three core things that you do in D&D, they have got one single word to refer to it: a D&D test. Orcs, no longer half orcs, just orcs. Really exciting, actually. The strength. They still keep their crazy strength as a martial race. So, still have relentless endurance. You can last on 1 hit point. But that's still once per long rest. That's interesting. Powerful build, counters 1 size larger when determining your carrying capacity. Dark vision, as you'd expect. Adrenaline rush. You can dash as a bonus action. And when you do that, you gain temporary hit points, which I think is really, really cool and really, really strong. Great for a fighter, barbarian, that sort of stuff. What you would expect, but no longer flavored through savagery. They're just really cool. I really want to play an orc. They seem really fun. Tieflings, here where they're at. What you'd expect, dark vision. They still get thaumaturgy, but they get an additional cantrip from their legacy. Different damage resistances. Through their legacy, you've still got Infernal, which has Hellish Rebuke and Darkness, and fire damage resistance, as you would expect, but they gain the addition of the Firebolt cantrip, which I think is very interesting. lots of things where people just like races are being given more tools, and so I don't want to hear anyone complaining about power creep. It's just fun. Backgrounds. This is where ability score increases have moved. So the core of it is you build your own background. You choose where your ability scores go, similar to Tasha's. You can put 2 in one, and then 1 in another, or 1 in 3, or I don't think you can do 3 in 1, but Tasha's rules. You can choose 2 skills and gain proficiency in them, choose 1 tool, get proficiency in it, and then choose a language. That's your backgrounds. That's the big things. Then they have sample backgrounds, which are like examples of what you could do, and they provide a little bit of extra story on top. But the point of it is to make you think about your backstory and then be gifted extra tools to help supplement that. The way they enhance that is they give you a feat to also do that. There is a new way that feats work. They have level prerequisites, and in this document they have the first level feats listed. And then equipment is also changed quite dramatically. But I don't use equipment, so I didn't look at it. Feats. Now, I'll just look at Acolyte here because there are other sample backgrounds, but this one shows the interesting things. So obviously it gives you examples of things that you can choose, a language that you can choose, and that's familiar to what we've seen in the past with backgrounds. But feat, obviously, holy shit, that with a background is insane. Every single character gets a feat at level 1. Magic Initiate Divine. We'll get back into the feats themselves in a minute. Another thing that they have changed is they are clickbait. They're removing spell lists. So there's no Magic Initiate used to be you choose the Bard spell list or the Wizard spell list or the Cleric spell list. It is now only 3 spell lists. There is the Arcane spell list, the Divine spell list, and the Primal spell list. There is some overlap between them. Thunderwave is Primal and Arcane. But Arcane is the way that Jeremy Crawford described it was Arcane is the general magic of the multiverse, the underlying arcane nature, the underlying weave. Divine comes from gods and the plane of gods, and Primal is the elements and nature. Druids and rangers. Divine is clerics and paladins, and Arcane is pretty much everyone else. Wizards, bards, sorcerers, and warlocks. Let's go down to the feats to skim them, because there are a lot of feats. And obviously backgrounds, there's a lot of different flavors here, so on. Languages, importantly, including Common Sign Language. I think that's just really exciting to like count that as a language and allow that as a tool to be able to use, as well as Thieves' Cant and Druidic in the rare languages. A disgraced chef, that sounds really fucking exciting. So the feats, I'll breeze through them as well. So all of the things in this document, there are no prerequisite, but is establishing that there will be prerequisites for feats, which the intention is to limit the selection and make things simpler for players to choose from, so that there's no longer this massive feat list. Repeatable niche, there's only like 1 or 2 in this document that are repeatable, but again, some things, it's a nice thing to have. Alert, no longer a +5 to your initiative bonus, it's your proficiency. And a really interesting ability, when you roll initiative, you can choose to swap your initiative with another player. You'd swap turns at the beginning of combat. Very interesting, very, very fun. I'm excited to see how that works. Crafter, you did some stuff. You get so what it seems like is they split what skilled could have been, where you pick 3 proficiencies. They've split it into, you get tool proficiencies for the crafter, there's a different one for skill proficiencies, and then there's a different one for musical instrument proficiencies. This is a tool proficiencies one, and it gives you a 20% discount of gold and time on non-magical items. So when trying to buy it, costs 20% less. When crafting it, it takes 20% less time, which I think is it's interesting. It's weird. Healer. Kind of it making what the healer was a bit better, but it still relies on a healer's kit. So when you use a healer's kit, the creature that you're using it on can expend one of their hit die, which is very good. Always love to see more hit die usage. And you can re-roll ones on that healing die when you use this battle medic. Or with a spell. So when you heal with a spell or with this battle medic, you can heal more. Lucky. I'm not a fan of this. You know how lucky it used to be? 3 luck points. You can choose when to expend it, get advantage, or force someone to reroll. They've now related it, rather than to 3 luck points, it's proficiency number of luck points. So lower level it's only 2, goes up to 3, then it begins to exceed 3, and higher levels you have 6 luck points. I've never really used luck points at my table. None of my players have wished for that. But from the stories that I have heard, I'm sure this is going to be hot contention in the community. Magic Initiate, as we spoke about, same as before, you two cantrips and 1 spell, same as Tasha's, can cast once per day without a spell slot, and then can cast more with a spell slot. Choose which ability score, but again, it's of the Divine, Primal, or Arcane spell lists. Musician, this is that gain 3 musical instrument proficiencies. You also get Inspiring Song. At a short or long rest, you basically can choose a proficiency number of allies and give them inspiration. So this calls in the other thing about inspiration, is if you get inspiration, but you already have inspiration, you can choose someone else and give them inspiration. Very interesting. This really hits that human thing of like always getting inspiration. I think same as old, though, if you have inspiration when you start a long rest, it goes away. So it incentivizes you to use it throughout the day, but you're basically giving your entire party inspiration with the musician. Savage Attacker, I think pretty much the same as it used to be. You can roll the weapon's damage dice twice, and so a change of wording. It's kind of changed to giving advantage to damage. You, rather than re-rolling 1 die or something, it's you just roll twice and you could use either result. And only on weapon dice. Skilled, you choose 3 skills and get proficiency in them. Tavern Brawler, another interesting one. A bunch of changed wordings about unarmed strikes. You get to shove as a part of an unarmed strike. You can re-roll 1s on damage from unarmed strikes. But they changed it from proficiency in improvised weapons. They have rephrased that to furniture as weapons. You can wield furniture as if it is a great club or a club. They quite specifically say that. I'm sure for some tables that would mean a nerf. I would just interpret that as still improvised weapons. Tough, same as before. I think it's exactly the same as before. It's just really good. Rules glossary. Just some of the explanations. Arcane spells, arts and stills, blah blah blah. Here is the explanation of the D20 test. There is wording in here about rolling a 1 regardless of what it is. So technically, rules as written previously, it was only like an automatic failure on an attack roll or something like that. Now, so on any D20 test, which again, attack rolls, ability checks, and saving throws, if it's a 1, automatically fails. If it's a 20, automatically succeeds. Probably a lot of people may have been playing it like that way, but now it is rules as written, according to this document. And rolling a 20 on any D20 test gives you inspiration. I think this is, at least in this document, this is taking the place of the flagship 20 calling card. You get inspiration when you roll a D20. Because critical hits sounds like technically they are only for weapon attacks. So it is the way to split spellcasters from martial classes. Martial classes, they are the only ones who can get critical hits, which means they're the only ones who can double their dice. As written, you roll the weapon dice twice, and then add your strength on top, or your dex. Personal opinion, don't love it. I run critical hits very differently, but that's okay. If this works for people, then great. An interesting thing to test. Again, Unearthed Arcana. Divine Spells, Gaming Sets. Grappled touches on something we'll go to very briefly. Slightly changed the wording. It sounds like it's no longer a grapple check to get out of it. It's a strength saving throw. I'm unsure if that was how it used to be, but it's how it is now in this document. If you're dragging someone, the grappler suffers the slowed condition. Up here. Slowed is a new condition. We'll jump back up in a moment to look at some of the other things. Where's slowed? Here. Again, weird wording. You must spend 1 extra foot of movement for every foot you move using your speed. Technically, like effectively, your speed is halved. That's what that means. But an interesting wording of it. Attack rolls against you have advantage, and you have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws. Focused at the slowed spell, but interesting to throw that on the grappled condition as well, and making it its own condition. Inspiration, very good, as we said earlier. You can gain inspiration from a bunch of new ways. You can, again, still only have 1 at a time, and at the start of the long rest, you lose that inspiration. If you get inspiration, while you already have inspiration, you can instead deflect that inspiration off to someone else. Don't think long rest had any changes. Musical instrument, primal spell, slowed, tool proficiencies. I'm very interested to see if they change tool proficiencies. I would like them to, because they've made a lot more new ways you can get tools. So I'd love to see them give them the same treatment that they have with inspiration and backgrounds, but we'll see. Tremor sense, again, really good that it's in here. A couple different wordings for unarmed strikes, which is exciting for monks. But we'll see what happens. Again, we don't have the classes yet, so we'll see. And then here is just a brief look at the cantrips and first level spells for the arcane, divine, and primal spells. That is a relatively quick, or maybe relatively slow, summary of this document. I think it's fucking awesome. Simplifies it enough for new players while maintaining and possibly increasing the complexity for wargamers. I love the setup of non-class spell lists, because again, in the interview that Todd Kendrick had with Jeremy Crawford, the wording sounded like there could be more classes coming in the future. And God, yeah. Really good to make backgrounds important again, or important for the first time in this 5th edition version. I had always basically ignored them. Same with inspiration. I literally had forgotten about inspiration for a year prior to reading this document. Yeah. That is the character origins Unearthed Arcana. We'll be getting more in the next few months. Stay tuned. Okay. Chef class. Yes, sorry. I did that for YouTube, and now I'll wrap up. This button? Yeah. Oh, that's very small. It's very, very small. How do I make that bigger? Boop! I didn't make it bigger. Oh no. Oh, I see what I did wrong. Boop. It's bigger now. Nope, not that button. You go down there. And you'll stay up there. But you need to go behind here. You can stay up there. So you can go up there. Sorry, Frog. I'll get to you in a moment. I'm just cringe. look like cheese while you zoomed in. It is a Van Gogh painting, but it could be cheese. It could be made of cheese. That should go behind my hand as well, technically. I'll just put that on top. Chef class. Yeah, a disgraced chef would be sick. Because they've got, I don't think they have a cook, but there is a cooking feat. There's a chef feat, but there's no chef. Like the chef feat sucks previously. And so it could be good because it doesn't really do anything. But it could be good. Chef feat. Yes. A chef class would be awesome as well. Why not, right? Yeah, I'm very excited. I'm very, very excited. I'm very excited to see what they do next, what they release next. I'm very excited to see classes when it comes to that. I'm excited to see more feats. I'm excited. I just like D&D. It's a good time to like D&D. I can do this actually because you can still see me and I can respond to some messages. But it's the notion of I'm ending soon. So leave because I don't think there's enough people here to raid. You could read a friend of mine. They got like 2 views. How many viewers do I have? I've hidden. Let me go work it out. Frog, can you tell me how many viewers I have? You'll be able to tell me sooner, probably. Actually, you gotta find your friends. Oh, okay, I got some viewers. I got some viewers. Hi, viewers. 4 viewers. Sweet. Who's the guy? Who's the raid? We'll raid them. God, I'm so small in the little corner. Wait, you can. I know you can't. Yeah, I just got hit with a wave of immense hunger. Starry sandwich. All right, let's remember how to raid. I should make myself bigger. I'm very small. That's better. I'm very self-absorbed. Raid channel. Sorry. Wait, I should check. There's a server that I'm on that I'm trying to get people to like me on. Geeky is live. See, Starry Sandwich. What are they doing?
Hey guys, I'm a cheese.
That's an ad. We'll wait till the ad finishes and we'll find out. I'm gonna upload this to YouTube hopefully today as well, by the way. So if anyone missed it, or if anyone's lurking and they wanted to catch it, because people definitely want to hear my opinions on D&D stuff that I have shown no credibility for actually being able to talk about. But it's fine. Gotta start somewhere. What are they playing?
What I like about this game is that there's so much going on that even if you're like okay at it, you can look cracked. Like I'm literally just relying on like lying right now to make it seem that I like am good at it. Ooh.
Yo, he's kind of cracked.
But I have like some inkling of
Goodbye.
what I'm doing. To look like a real gamer for once in my life.
Goodbye. 3 viewers are ready to raid? Well, I'd like more than that, but...
How are you? Sarah, could you... Hold on, I can do it. First. Ooh, Dungeons and Dragons. Nice. Now you have to stream for another 5 hours. I have to, like, record some stuff, because I got a special stream going on in, like, 5 days. So I can't really take the time to record. What's up? Thank you so much for that raid. Good luck on the stream. Thank you.